broken and alone. I feel the rain crashing down. All around this empty town, we're searching for the lost and found. But you don't care, you're unaware. Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air, like a blazing flare. Just stare, cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over. Keep you warm by the roaring sea. You meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. Yeah. I prayed for you and kept you near, in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm on my own, you made it so, and now I'm chasing nightmares. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe the home was just you and me. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, you meant the world to me. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own. No point in blaming you, you did not know. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me.
Said that you moved on. Where did I go wrong? I tried to make you stay, but I guess my love wasn't enough. Was it me or was it you, love? Cause I'm dying to know. Why do you wanna end? Was it real or just pretend? Tell me why do you wanna end? Was he really just a friend? No sign of you at all. Just pictures on these walls, reminding me of how you threw away all that we've gone through. Was it all just a game to you? 'Cause I'm dying to know. Why do you wanna end? Was it real or just pretend? Tell me, why do you wanna end? Was he really just a friend? 'Cause it's plain in my head, every word that you said, I ain't worked it out yet. So why do you wanna end? Was it real or just pretend? If there was any sign that our love was in decline, I would have begged you not to go. I would have given even more. My heart is breaking up inside. Can't believe our love has died. Guess it's out of my control. Why do you wanna end? Was it real or just pretend? Tell me, why do you wanna end? Is he really just your friend? 'Cause it's plain in my head, every word that you said, I ain't worked it out yet. So why do you wanna end? Was it real or just pretend? Why do you wanna?
Took a swing at a wrecking ball and I prayed for my downfall, and I found a way to reconcile. 'Cause in my heart it's not worthwhile. It's a bloody battlefield where some go down, others heal. In the end it's all the same. All you can do is play the game. Oh, do we say goodbye? Refuse to question why. I'm sad to say I'm sorry, so lie. Pretend that you're okay. Swear that you will stay. Keep trying for one day. I'm sick of all these lies. Don't care if I capsize. There's nothing left for me to hide. Don't wanna live a lie. Too many lows, too many highs. Too many things to criticize. And so I leave it all behind. Don't wanna live a lie. Life kept spitting at my feet and forced me down a dead-end street when all I had went up in flames, burning only dark remains. I cover up every part of my skin, oh, 'cause I don't like the person within, oh. I know I'm the one to blame. All I can do is take the shame, oh. Do we say goodbye? Refuse to question why. I'm too sad to say I'm sorry, so lie and pretend that you're okay. Swear that you will stay. Keep trying for one day. Whoa, I'm sick of all these lies. Don't care if I capsize. There's nothing left for me to hide. Don't wanna live a lie. Too many lows, too many highs. Too many things to criticize. So I leave it all behind. Don't wanna live a lie. might capsize. Oh no.
Empty hearts and neon lights, they're playing with my mind. Gotta get out of here tonight. Oh, I wanna run off and fly, and I'll tell myself it's fine to be alone, just to find somewhere that finally feels like home. Oh, oh, oh. I hate all this overthinking. Oh, 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 oh. The more I swim, the more I'm sinking. Take me to a world of silver. No more heartbreaks, tears, painkillers. Take me somewhere unfamiliar. Bring me back to where we started out. Get me out of now. To where we started out. Get me out of now. To where we started out. La 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 la. Oh, oh. Get me out of broken hearts and starting fights, turning truth to lies. Gotta get up, stop wasting time. Yeah, I wanna run off and fly, and I'll tell myself it's fine to be alone, just to find somewhere that finally feels like home. Oh, oh, oh. I hate all this overthinking. Oh, 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 oh. The more I swim, the more I'm sinking. Take me to a world of silver. No more heartbreaks, tears, painkillers. Take me somewhere unfamiliar. Bring me back to where we started out. Get me out of now. To where we started out. Get me out of now. To where we started out. Oh no.
All right, if folks want to come in and get seated, we'll get started in just a couple moments. We'll give it just a moment for folks who are wandering over from the Bay Terrace to join us. All right, it's 9:01. Are we good to go over there? Yep, thumbs up. We're green to go. All right, folks, you ready to get this party started? Yeah. Thank you. I was like, oh, come on. Don't make me try that hard today. It's been a long week. All right, welcome everyone to day 2 of ARIN 52. We're happy to have you back. Want to start off the day with just a couple quick reminders before we launch into our presentations. Again, I'd like to thank all of our volunteer bodies that support the ARIN community, the Board of Trustees, Advisory Council, and NRO Number Council. If I could get you guys to stand up if you're in the room, and just let's give them a round of applause. All right, thank you so much. All right, just a quick reminder for those joining us in the hybrid space for our virtual meeting, or virtual attendees. Words. Chat is for chat. If you wish to enter a comment or a question when we get to any Q&A portions or the open microphone, please make sure to raise your hand or to enter that question in the Q&A box on your Zoom. The help desk will be open for virtual attendees until 9:30 this morning if you're having any technical challenges, and then it will be open again at the break. In person, you are welcome to join the Zoom if you like. Please do be sure if you do that your device is muted and you are disconnected from audio. But you are welcome to log in there so that you can engage in chat with the remote attendees if you so choose. Just a reminder, the navigation on our website is a little bit compressed this time. Under the in-person navigation menu, I believe, yep, you can see where you can find our ombudsman's information if you need to contact him at any point during the meeting. And then for virtual attendees, the virtual event hub and help desk are available, and for in-person attendees, that virtual event hub would be a way that you could quickly access the Zoom if you wanted to join that. For our Q&A portions of the meeting, please remember, whether you are entering a comment in person or virtually, that you need to do that by starting with your name and affiliation for the benefit of our transcriptionists, and also if you could try to speak a teenth slower than I'm talking right now. I'd like to thank our network sponsor, AT&T, if we could give them a round of applause. This meeting does rely very heavily on a functional network, so the network sponsor is a critical component of the success of the meeting. I'd like to thank our bronze sponsor, IPv4.global by Hilco Streambank. I didn't even have to ask that time. You guys are getting good at this. All right, and last, our webcast sponsor, Google. Okay, so we have a lot of really good content for you today. We're going to start off with an engineering update, followed by routing security, information security, an update from IANA, NRO EC update, our global RIR update, and then we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We have our one virtual presenter of the meeting who will be speaking on research around network and IP management obstacles. Then we'll have our programs update and certification program update, and close out with the ASO AC update and an open microphone. So lots to get through, a little bit of time. We're going to get the party started, get rolling here, and if I could invite Mark Costers up to handle the engineering update, that would be awesome. Come on up, Mark.
The green button, thank you.
Green button.
So welcome. So, yeah, I should say just good morning. So, for me, I'm still in Eastern time zone. I've been waking up at 3 in the morning and not falling back to sleep. I don't know how many the rest of you are like that, but it's just not happening to me this week. So I guess I've been up for 5 hours already. For you who've been up for much less than that, congratulations. So, hey, so what I'm going to talk about today, this presentation is going to be a preview of other talks that are going to be following me. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about lots of things, and then you're going to hear a lot more about sort of more narrow subject matters as we go through this presentation. So here we go. I guess that's the engineering report. That's me. Okay, what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk about the services that engineering supports. It's really sort of a catalog, if you will, of the things that engineering takes care of for ARIN and for the community. Second of all, we're going to talk about statistics on certain aspects of these services that we have, software releases that we've done since the last meeting, and end up with challenges in what we're going to be doing next. Core services, ARIN Online. What is that? Anyone here actually use ARIN Online? Oh, okay. Let me put it the other way. Who's not used ARIN Online here? All right, we have a few people. So that's fine. Go ahead and log in. You can get yourself an account, log in once, and you can be part of the statistics collection that I report on every month, every ARIN meeting. We have email templates that someday will go away. We have reports. We have lots of reports that are put out. So who was, bulk who is, extended delegated stats, a whole bunch of transfer stats, you name it, and we have reports on it. RPKI, we're going to have lots of enhancements to that. The Internet Routing Registry, IRR, we have some updates to that. DNS, not really so many updates about that, but man, we have a lot of traffic going towards that. Directory services, and I think it was Andrew Dahl that brought this up at the open mic. We have 3 services that essentially do the same thing. They're all a little bit different. We have Who Is, and as we go through the slides, you'll see that it gets a predominant amount of traffic from the community. We have Who Is RWS, which is sort of our predecessor to RDAP. And Who Is RWS is basically webifying Who Is with essentially all the same features as what Who Is has, but on port 80 and 443. And of course, we have RDAP. And this is an industry standard that we've helped the IETF through that the community will be using. And someday, we hope that will basically take over Who Is. We have email, Hostmaster, and billing. Other services, ARIN mailing lists, the ARIN website. And the ARIN website is comprised of both ARIN Online and the Vault. And if you've gone to the Vault recently, you notice that it looks a little bit differently, and we've made some enhancements to it, and that was a long-running project between us and communications. We have an OT&E set up for people who want to go ahead and test their code against what we have, whether it be APIs or using the user interface. We have that set up as well. We have FTP. Yes, we still run FTP. Many of you don't probably know what FTP is. Okay, most of you do know what it is. We have the ARIN Online staff interface on the backside. We call that the management app. We have infrastructure tools that we have on the backside as well. Security and performance monitoring. We have weekly meetings where we talk about how things are doing. We actually go through graphic graphs on our various services, as well as the infrastructure that supports those services to make sure that everything is running fine. We have cloud-based tools that we have using as well. Email, of course, within the organization, which is really important. Various environments that are used for testing, long-running hardened testing, daily testing, regression testing, you name it, testing, we have that kind of testing. And, of course, analytics. So let's go look at statistics now. This is the number of people who've actually activated ARIN Online accounts since its inception. And one of the things that continually amazes me is that we always consistently have approximately 10,000 to 12,000 users, new users, every year that come into ARIN Online. What's interesting about this even more is the number of people that are one and done. So those people who haven't had accounts, you can actually join in and make that the second column or that second part of the chart actually higher if you want. So if you raise your hand and never going on to ARIN Online, now's your opportunity to do so. The last thing I'll mention is that the number of people who have logged in 16 or more times is continually growing. Of course, that makes sense over time. And there's one person that has logged into almost 1 billion times. Person's been very, very busy. What can I say? 2FA adoption. So we made 2FA, two-factor authentication, mandatory for ARIN Online accounts. And one of the things that's interesting is that there's been over almost 21,000, or well, it's over 20,000 new accounts since it was made mandatory. And it's basically running neck and neck between Top P and SMS for the sort of favored authentication method. Fighter 2 is following behind, but I'm sure it will gain up steam someday. Provisioning transactions. Okay, so these are people who are actually going in and doing reassignments within ARIN. And what you'll notice here is that the green line, which are templates, is slowly drifting down. Slowly, 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 still there. When will it go away? The purple line is the RESTful transaction that continues to grow. Who is RWS? So who is the blue line? That is the legacy protocol. It's been around since I was a little baby. And the red line is who is RWS, which is a predecessor to RDAP, which is the web version of this. And you can see that they're continuing to grow. The amazing thing is that we continue to be near record growth on Whois. So people like to query us for data. Here's an interesting graph dealing with RDAP. You'll notice that the numbers are a little bit different, the legends are a little bit different. And what I wanted to do through this graph is to show you, here's a new service. This is a pretty modern service. The amount of people that are using V4, which is in red, and the people that are using V6, that's in blue. It'd be really kind of fun to see blue overtake red, but I'm not really holding my breath too much. So, and it's maybe 5 to 10% of our traffic is essentially V6. DNS. I'm not sure how many of you can see this. We see about 70,000 queries per second across the /8 servers that serve up our like 192.inatter.arpa. So it's a fairly busy service. What's interesting about that is most of the traffic is PTR records, which makes sense because that's the way that you say, hey, give me the name dealing with this IP address, which is the whole sole purpose of reverse DNS. And that is essentially 50% of the traffic. A records, which is, hey, I have this name, give me the IP address. It's close behind. Not sure why, but that is what it is. So there you go. Releases and improvements. Secure routing announcements. This is where I talk about sort of preview and sort of going over generally about what things are going to be talked about by Brad a little bit later. We've done some preliminary work with RPKI integration with IRR. That work is ongoing. We actually needed to go to the community to do a consultation that many of you all participated in to figure out what is the best steps going forward. We have done a notification for tech admin and routing contacts when a row is deleted. We've done RDP notification file optimization. And I'll say, what is that? Well, RPKI has this repository. And you have two ways of getting this data. One is using rsync, which is the old protocol, and RDP, which is the new one, which actually uses the web. And what we're learning over time is that there's some better ways of doing impacts, and actually we've actually helped with the community create best and current practices. And we've actually done some optimizations of our notification file, which basically says, hey, these changes have occurred since the last time you checked. go ahead and pull down these changes. We've had UI navigation improvements within ARIN Online, RPKI auto renewal, which is a big hit. A number of you have talked to me about that and love it. And RPKI actions are no longer ticketed. When we first started this RPKI business, we thought that our HSMs were going to be overrun, it's a slow component, overrun with requests. And we've realized that we need to remove this gate, so we remove the options of ticketing these things. So now, once you go ahead and submit for your new ROA, it's immediately created. We have template and ARIN Online feature parity. I know that someone in the audience really likes that. Thank you, Kat. So that is out there now. Qualified Facilitator Program. This is a new program that ARIN's put out. We had made some process improvements for that. New fee calculator reflects the ASN fee harmonization changes that will start in 2024. New daily resources under agreement report. This is another one that the community actually likes. We may have some improvements to make to it as well, and basically denotes full versus basic registry services per internet resource. Ongoing, and this is another thing that I'm doing a preview for. We have a SOC 2 Type 2 audit that's underway and a PCI audit underway. Both Christian and I are very happy about the progress. I will say no more, Christian. I'll let you do the rest. And we also have a reduction of technical debt. System improvements since ARIN 51. We're continually getting rid of end-of-life boxes. We're preparing to roll out new hardware for our PFS sites. We actually have this housed in one of our facilities, one of our 3 facilities, and are working on the transition now. And we've completed our third-party audit, security audit, earlier in Q3. What's next in challenges? Okay, so here's some things that are coming out. So I talked a little bit about templates, right? And we had, at the last meeting, we had a conversation about what should we do with templates. And Hollis brought up that there's going to be an upcoming consultation on getting rid of templates. To help this along, we realized that many of you don't have the budget right now to go ahead and retool your stuff that's been there for a long time on doing reassignments that actually submits templates. So what we did is create a tool that you can actually use as a shim that would take this template stuff and actually create RESTful API calls on the back end. And we're going to be making this publicly available, and it will actually help, we hope it will help facilitate the transition from templates to the RESTful RegRWS API calls that many of you all use today. So our hope is, for one, this is more secure for you guys. 2, it will help retire this legacy service more quickly. So this template processor will become available after the consultation starts, which I believe Hollis said will be sometime in November. This is the README, and you can see the graphic, how this works. Basically, it uses is using Docker to actually work all this magic out, and you can see the process flow. Basically, you send templates to this SMTP service, which is an email system. It then sends it to a Docker image that actually translates that template into API calls that actually talks to ARIN. Second thing that we're talking about, and this is fairly new as well, is geolocation within RDAP. So there's been, over time, people have asked for, hey, we really like to know where this IP address really is located. And this really isn't a part of ARIN's core mission, but there are things that we can do to help. And there's an RFC that's actually out there. It's called RFC 9092. It's in the lower area. That describes local management of how people can actually deal with their resources and geolocation data. And the way of bootstrapping that is using a directory service protocol to make this happen. One of the things that we've had over time is that there's been, within the WHOIS arena, there's been various formats done by various players, all entrenched, so that it's really hard to parse this. WHOIS RWS, which is a predecessor to RDAP, really hasn't taken off aside from what's, that ARIN uses. But RDAP is something that all the regional registries are consistently following, and we're all following the same behavior. And as we go forward with new enhancements, it may be the best way to put this in is to actually have this sort of pointer to someone's repository where they can say, here's my list of IP addresses and where it's actually geolocated. And actually, that's up to ISPs. They can actually do this or not do this. There's no mandate to make this happen. But this could be a better way of actually making this go. One of the things I'll note, I'm kind of jumping all over the place on the background here, but ICANN is in the process of sunsetting WHOIS. They are in the process making all the registrars and registries on the domain side actually move from WHOIS as a mandated service that they need to provide to the community to RDAP. And this will be completed right now in January of 2025. So this work is underway. They're in the transition period now, but they're looking to do this within the next year or so. So you will see a lot of work starting to happen here. If you haven't heard RDAP before, you're going to be hearing RDAP a lot more going forward. Challenges over time, we had our SOC 2 Type 1 audit that we actually put into place. We passed. We've had a balance of urgent needs, ARIN 51, ARIN online enhancements, internal tools for customer-facing services and teams, and technical debt. We continue that trend, continuing having technical debt, ARIN online enhancements, customer-facing teams, as well as the SOC 2 and PCI audits. So there's a lot of work being done as a team with engineering and with information security, and also with the customer service teams and et cetera to make all these things happen. And we're working hard to help serve the community better. So thank you. Any questions?
If anyone has questions for Mark, now would be the time to approach the microphones or start typing. And I see we have our first person.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Mark.
Oh, you're welcome.
First question. The word technical debt, in how many presentations over how many years has that word been used?
Lots.
Lots. Can you refactor that into something more along the lines of life cycle management and start actually showing where, because technical debt is a negative.
Yes.
And really, in many cases, what you're saying is, we're a little bit behind on some stuff, we're doing great on others, here's what's going on. Mm-hmm. But it's more about life cycle management, and it's just something that I've noticed. It also sort of applies to what you just brought up with getting rid of email templates. Mm-hmm. The most important thing is that discussion of getting rid of email templates is as long as the term technical debt has been around. I think you've put it up on slides for the last 10 years. Sunset it, but more importantly, give us a life cycle of, in 18 months, this is being deprecated, in 36 months, this is being turned off, whatever it may be, but give the community just a roadmap, a life cycle of these, because we're thinking about doing it, has been at the mic for the last 7 years now, I believe.
Yeah.
Rather just give us a life cycle on it. We understand that this is old. You're going to have to work with it and get feedback and all of those things. But that makes life much easier for everybody.
Yeah. Understood. Thank you, Kevin. Yes, John.
There's my mic. Thank you. Okay. So the management of the technical debt, and it is technical debt. We have lifecycle management for all the things we're developing, and we're very good about making sure we're not adding to the technical debt. But we have a large number of systems we inherited that truly is technical debt. We report quarterly to the Board of Trustees the status of ARIN's technical debt in detail, multiple pages with charts showing quarter-by-quarter plans on what's getting retired. So there is a level of oversight and review, and it does change over time. We have a sizable quantity, but it is a different and smaller amount. It's smaller, and it's different than what it was 3 years ago. I don't know the extent to which the board wants us to go ahead and review that with the members as well. I can certainly discuss that, but I do want to distinguish. We do lifecycle management for all the systems we're developing, but we have things we didn't develop, or we have things that were not maintained until we started a regime of it. That's why the term technical debt's used.
Thank you.
Right,
Mark, Dan Alexander, Comcast. I've seen these presentations a number of times, and it's always interesting because we're adding more and more services, and we're continuing to drag the old ones along. And it's one thing from an engineering perspective, but yesterday we were also talking about the same thing from a finance perspective and the ever-increasing costs to support it all. It's just a suggestion that staff or ARIN may want to consider, like, pick out the bottom 25% of legacy services functionality, things that are consuming engineering's time, and let's pick out a slot or set a slot aside on the next ARIN meeting where the community can get together and give the board some real guidance about, let's just cut this one, let's just cut this one, and start, getting rid of some of the legacy functionality so you don't have to constantly support it.
Agreed. So there's a couple legacy services. I'll mention one that I personally would like to see go, and that's FTP, File Transfer Protocol. Vendors don't even support that on their OSs anymore. But I know that people are still reliant on it. So that's something that we would have to work through to actually make the community aware, to retool their systems, et cetera, so that they can be ready for it. But your point is very valid.
And the other reason it came to mind is there was a presentation, I think it was earlier at ARIN, or maybe it was NANA, it's all blurring together. The ever-recurring story of how, someone was talking to the presenter because they wrote the code, 20 years ago that's still running today, and they had left the company and nobody even knows where it is anymore. So much of the stuff that's probably still being used are those situations which are never going to go away. So at a certain point, we just have to cut the cord.
Agreed. Thank you so much.
Hi, Kat Hunter, Comcast, ARIN AC. As one of the largest old email users of templates, the changes you made this year and the upcoming changes, once you made the changes this year, I have not touched the email templates. As far as I'm concerned, you can get rid of them now.
Okay.
Everything works the way that it should. I've used it several times online and it works very well.
Thank you so much, Kat.
Yep.
All right, I don't see anything coming in from online, so I think you are all done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, we're going to stick with our theme at the moment and head right into an update on routing security. Where is my, there he is. Brad Gorman making his way to the stage. You do need walk-on music. You take your time, don't you? Huh?
I'm giving you more opportunities to speak.
What more should I say, Mr. Gorman?
How wonderful and beautiful that this hotel has been.
Oh, yes, the hotel has been lovely. Yes. What else?
The fine weather in Southern California.
Yep, the fine weather in Southern California. I hope everyone has taken advantage of that. Any other notes?
The great presentations that you've been able to.
Oh, yeah, you guys have had a great bunch of presentations. We're going to have a few more here. Can we go?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Hollis, and thank you, everybody, for being here. Again, I'm Brad Gorman, the routing security product owner, responsible for all of the routing security products like RPKI, IRR, DNSSEC, but today I'm going to focus on RPKI. So we'll talk about a very high definition and overview of RPKI and its usefulness, talk about ARIN's RPKI services and what they do. We're going to look at some of the adoption numbers at RPKI of the services here at ARIN. And then we'll talk about some new features, features that were released since ARIN 51, new features that have just been released beginning of this month. And there you go, let's go from there. So let's talk about RPKI. Thank you, RFC 8620, for this defined definition. But basically, RPKI is a certificate-based cryptographic method where a resource holder can tell operators near and far across the internet that you should be seeing traffic from these prefixes coming from this ASN, otherwise don't trust it. So it's just a nice, simple method, as confusing and as sleep depriving these the RFCs may be. It's a product that is the shining example of where routing security features are today and moving forward into the future. So what are some of the high-level benefits of RPKI? Well, it gives operators another third-party source of information to make better informed decisions about their routing decisions. This is a build-on to its sister routing security product, the IRR, but the great plus with RPKI is there's continued development moving forward, and it's going to be with us for a long, long time, and everybody should pay attention and move forward. Another thing that RPKI offers network operators is it gives the resource holders, the opportunity to make these statements about their resources and where they should come from. And it protects them from mistaken configurations or attempted nefarious activity like hijacking your traffic. And then it also reduces the overall attack surface available to people who are trying to do bad things by making these statements and by using RPKI. So I'm going to talk about the services that ARIN offers, but I have to give you just a quick definition of a couple terms. So in the certificate methodology that's in RPKI, it follows the same rules and the same formatting as HTTP, or welcome, or HTTPS, So there is a highest level certificate that is the trusted certificate for everything else down the chain. And in the example of RPKI, the trust anchor are all of the RARs who are responsible for confirming resources that are in our registries to say when someone makes that statement that yes, this is genuine when it comes from the resource holder. The main component that you resource holders are interested in RPKI is the route origin authorization, or the ROA. This is where you tell people, hey, my prefix should be coming from this ASN, and it's your opportunity to make that statement in a place that everyone who is enabling and using RPKI can see it. And then there is an extremely important component in the middle of the RPKI. It's relying party software, but the more common term is a validator. And these validators are what search for and collect data from all of the RARs, RPKI repositories, and then make a determination about whether the information in the repository is valid, and then that data is used by operators on the back end to make those more informed routing decisions. So there's two main RPKI features that we offer, and our peers, the other RARs, offer. The first is hosted RPKI. Now, hosted RPKI is kind of like the RPKI on training wheels, let's call it that. The advantage to you, the resource holder, is that the RAR, and ARIN in this case, does all the heavy lifting. We serve as that top certificate tree authenticator. We are the one to maintain all of the information in the repositories for these ROAs that you've created. The only responsibility that you have is creating these ROAs, but we do all the rest of making sure that certificate authority is there, making sure that those ROAs and that repository is available. High availability is important. And this hosted RPKI service is available both using the ARIN Online web interface or the API where you can make changes. Now, it is by far the easiest one to use. It is by far the most adopted and used version of RPKI services at ARIN, and in fact across the world. Upwards of 98% of our customers are the users of RPKI use hosted. Now, delegated RPKI is kind of the other end of the spectrum. All of the responsibility, save that highest level certificate, that the trust anchor function that ARIN performs, is now taken on by you, or the operator who wants to maintain full control of their certificates and how they sign their ROAs. They maintain their repository and the publication services. It is really for an organization who wants to maintain a lot more control over their destiny with respect to RPKI, but it does come with a number of much higher responsibility associated with it, and it really isn't, or I wouldn't really recommend it for any organization that doesn't have a good handle, good knowledge of RPKI and its functions, as well as human and technical resources available to provide these repository services and running their certificate authority. Now, I fumbled a little bit. There isn't really a third flavor of RPKI, but there is an offshoot of delegated, and in the colloquial term is hybrid RPKI, and it's kind of the best of both worlds for an organization who wants to do it. So for the org that wants to maintain more control over things, they run their own certificate authority. They manage where they or their customers create their ROAs. But ARIN, in this case, will run the high availability repositories that people out on the internet will pull down with their validators and make these decisions. And it's that high uptime availability requirement that most people don't want to run. So this is really a good option for someone who wants more control but wants to kind of offload the hard stuff back to ARIN. So I'm going to show you a few numbers of adoption inside the ARIN region. As of today, or as of actually October 1st, the number of organizations, eligible organizations that had resources that could sign up for RPKI services, only 23.9% of them have adopted and turned up some sort of RPKI configuration with ARIN. It is growing, and again, you can tell the numbers here. The hosted numbers are significantly larger than delegated, and since hybrid is kind of a in-between two, that's actually a sub-service for delegated customers. And you can see there's a few customers that have started using that. But the graph, we just really want to represent that it's going up and to the right. Selfishly, I'd like to see it go to the right and a whole lot more up. So if there's any questions, please come and find us, and we'll help you out how to do it. This is a representation of all of the addresses that are in ARIN's responsible for in our registry, and then comparing it to the number of addresses that are visible and being covered by these ROAs, these statements that you're making about your resources. And about 1/3 of all of the numbers in ARIN's repository, ARIN's registry, have been checked and are validated and are RPKI valid in the internet today. So here are new features in development. Now, since ARIN 51, we had a release cycle 2 weeks after that. So some of these things were things being developed in the future that are now old and long in the tooth. They've been around for 6 months now. So we developed a new API. That new API, a much simpler interface, and makes it, it enabled atomic creation. You can do multiple adds and deletes inside of the same call, where everything was linear before. And one of the biggest things that changed back in May was that we removed the signing requirement for users who were creating ROAs. And that opened up a whole lot of opportunities for us to develop new features for you, amongst them ROA auto-renewal. And Mark brought this up, but a ROA auto-renewal is exactly what it sounds like. Since your ROAs will no longer expire, there's kind of a safety net out there. You can create them, and if you don't need to keep an eagle eye on it and make sure that they're there. We're going to take those and refresh them every 80 days for you. So no unexpected or unintended impacts from ROAs going away. I want to make a point, though, that any of the ROAs that were created with the API that had been released in 2014 are not auto-renewing. So you do need to make an effort to either recreate those rows using the UI or with the new API to take advantage of the auto-renewal feature that we enabled. Another nice catch up and keep you out of trouble sort of thing, we automated our certificate rerolls. So if resources come in or leave your organization, be it by transfers or new allocations, we will update your certificate with the new list of resources for you so that the next time that you jump into the UI or go to use the API to make changes, those new resources are going to be available to you right away when you get in. We also released an eligibility matrix, a kind of a different representation of how you would go into your RPKI or your IRR features. And that makes it much simpler, right in front of you presentation of where my organization stand with, do I have resources that can be used or not used, and you know, quicker links to explanations of how to make it happen. And I don't have it on the slide here, but one of the things I've been hearing from the community is when we got rid of the signing requirement, made it easier for you to create rows. You don't have to worry about expiration dates anymore. The form, the input form is simplified a lot, and somebody told me it's like having the easy button. And I was happy it wasn't like that. It's like having the no button, but it's been recognized that some of the work that we've been doing has been, you know, well received, and we're going to continue with development along the lines and get things going. Now, we had a consultation that ran from a period from August into September, where we were asking for your input on a feature that will pull closer together the use of two of the main routing security products, the RPKI and the IRR. And after discussion, both with the community and internal at the conclusion of that consultation, I'm going to go over in some detail, more details available online, or you can reach out to any of us, me or other people at ARIN to get even more detail. But we'll go down the list, sorry. ARIN organizations will have the ability to set an organizational default that will automatically create a corresponding managed IRR route object at row creation. It's a way to make it easier upon you to create objects. It gives you an easy button, so to speak, to create IRR objects that maybe have been forgotten, that you don't know that you need to make. So this is a simplification of bringing those together, and it's also going to, over time, tighten up the IRR infrastructure that's at ARIN and make it more useful moving forward. So the default of this feature is set to on, but at every point during the addition or creation process, you have the option to say, yes, I agree, or no, I don't want to create an auto-managed object. So at every step of the way, you have a yes, no, stop where you can do it or not want to do it. All of the auto-managed objects are going to be marked in the database as being such, being auto-managed. And these auto-managed objects are going to be forever linked to that row. Now, if you have a row and you go to delete it and you agree that, hey, I created this row, there was a managed object, I want you to get rid of it for me, great, we'll go ahead and do it. If you so choose to keep that managed or that route object that was created, it will become unmanaged, and then just the row is deleted. So there won't be a unintended, if you choose not to, removal of the route object that may have unintended consequences. When the rows are created, we are going to do a check to say, hey, do you want, there are no route objects associated with this. Do you want us to create it? Yes or no, you have the option to do that. These auto-managed objects that were created during row creation are not going to consider a max length variable that's inside of a row when creating managed route object. Let me get into that. ROAs have settings like with a max length value that could potentially open up to a very large number of route objects created. By use of that feature, you could create thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even worse. If you were to say create a ROA with a V6 and say, oh, everything from my 32 that I have, create n number of ridiculously high /48 route objects. So in an attempt to maintain the size of the IRR database, these route objects will create a highest level, least or most generic intent that's in that prefix, that's in that row that you created. This also goes along with a standard in the RFC that is suggesting a limited use. There are use cases for having a max length value turned on, but the path and the direction that we're taking with this, we believe, is not only in the spirit of using max length in a way that is not, that won't be abused, that can't cause problems. Now, the deletion sequence is the same thing. If you go to delete your row, you have the ability to say yes or no. I want to delete the row and any connected objects. Those objects that don't get deleted are now unmanaged, allowing you to delete them. At any point in time, you can manually create your own route objects. We're not taking that away, but those route objects will not be managed by a row unless generated at row creation. And as a means of bringing together conformity, the API, as it was released in May, will also be updated to give the same features and capabilities as the users of the web UI. So we do have some interesting things in the pipeline. Mark touched on a couple of them, but I got a couple different ones here too. We have a feature that we're calling the RPKI IRR Intelligence, our BGP intelligence. And what this is, a request that came in through our suggestion process to give information to the organization or the users creating a ROA to see what is the potential impact, what could be the effect of me creating this ROA beforehand, giving them kind of a precognition. And that's something that is integral in being able to understand what may or may not happen before and not having any impact. We're also going to give the ability or we're going to provide the information that says, hey, you have announcements going out that are existing on the internet, you don't have a ROA. Would you like to create a ROA for that? And additionally, we could say, hey, you're creating a ROA that doesn't match what's out that we're seeing in the internet. Do you want to, sync things up? And that's something that definitely people have been looking for and asking for, and it is high on the list of future development. And then we're coming the other way now with regards to syncing capabilities that are in the API and the web UI. We're going to give web users the ability to download the full list of ROAs in a format file that you can pull off and do you can do further work on them, offline. We're going to accept ROA changes via file via upload. So the interface right now is create a row, come back, create another row, commit. Well, the API says you can create 1,000 rows all at once. So we're going to give people the opportunity that maybe aren't familiar or not wanting to use an API to upload a file in a format as we explain what it needs to look like and create a whole bunch of rows all at once. And another thing that's interesting that we had another request was to create a way with which we can assist in customers who are transferring from a hosted to a delegated deployment of RPKI. A lot under the hood there, but it's something that not only for this feature will have applicability on other features that we're going to release in the future. Detail, but also high level.
All right.
You have any questions?
Thank you, Brad. If anyone has any questions for Brad, please approach the microphone. I saw we had one come in from a virtual attendee. So Beverly, if you'd like to read that for us.
Sure. From Kurt Turok. For the 2014 ROA API created ROAs, will the expiration emails will be sent reminders before they expire, right?
Absolutely. Historically, there had been and still will be messages sent at a 30-day countdown when ROAs are going to expire. Again, those only go to ones that are expiring, not ones that are reaching the end of the auto-renew cycle. So it's only for ROAs that delete, and yes, we'll continue to send them.
He says thank you.
Awesome. Okay, we'll come over to...
Ed Lewis, ICANN. Speaking as someone who's interested in the deployment of technologies, the statistics you gave in this talk, I would like to see them online and kept tracked over time. I'm curious how people are adopting, which version of the hosted or delegated. I'm interested in seeing that split over time. So if you could keep stats like that online, that would be helpful to people who look at how this gets rolled out.
I believe that's a great idea, and we'll look at it.
Come a little bit of wire. Brad, thank you. The improvement to the RPKI ecosystem within the ARIN region over the past 3 years has been extraordinary. And you can absolutely see that the up rate now is getting there, and with your simplifications to the process, it is going to accelerate even further. So kudos to you and the staff and everybody who's been involved in improving this.
Thank you. And I thank you for the kind words to me, but I just suggest and prioritize things. Really, it's the engineering and development teams that are the ones that have been doing the hard work. So thank you.
My one question is, how is ARIN doing from a feature parity point of view with RPKI to the other RIRs? And I don't mean that in a negative. I just want to make sure that if everybody is sort of getting towards this simplification, or is, can you sort of speak to how that's going on with the RIRs?
And that's interesting that you bring that up, and thank you for doing it. The NRO and the executive committee of the NRO did recognize that there are places where we could come to a more uniform, exactly the same is a push, because we know that all the RIRs have their own responsibilities and member community they have to talk to. But we're coming together, and one of these groups is an RPKI working group. We are going to do exactly that, try to come closer together to get a simplified but more common presentation of the capabilities across all the RIR footprints. So that's something that we're working on now. We're in fact hiring the cat herder that's going to work with all of us across the RIRs moving forward in the future, and that's high on the list of things to do next year.
Thank you.
Anthony Dela Cruz, Lumen. I again second that. You guys are doing great with this. Some of the changes to the pages, the format and everything, it's really easy for our customers as we walk them through to be able to use it. When do you anticipate the organizational on-off button appearing? My concern with that, since we run the level 3 routing registry and we're getting ready to dump in a ton of ROAs, I don't want to duplicate some of that information that appears inside of our routing registry.
Understand, and again, thank you for your question. So the development on those features as outlined in the consultation, work is going to start on that maybe the end of this year, but likely beginning of next year, and it'll be a next year deployment. As it gets closer, we'll probably give more defined time frame of when it'll come, but my crystal ball says first half of next year. I'd like to
keep up the good work. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Steve Wallace, Internet 2, great work. I have one thought. When you go to the ARIN online webpage, it shows your IP address that you're coming from, I think up in the upper right or upper left-hand corner. You should have a check if there's a covering ROA for that. And there are, like, is your network safe sites, but they don't actually do that. So that seems like and maybe I'll submit that. I don't know if that's something that would be submitted as a feature request for the user interface, but it'd be nice if you just had an indication, yeah, your your IP address is covered by ROA.
Okay, interesting. Well, we'll talk about it.
Leif Sawyer, GCI Communications, Alaska. Thank you absolutely for all the work you guys are doing. My company said, no, we don't want to do ROAs. We don't want to do RPKI because it's too difficult, it's too confusing, and the risks are too high. What you've done is made it so that my architect sent me a message and said, when are you back? We want to start doing ROAs. So.
Awesome.
Awesome.
That, Leif, thank you. That makes me feel good that the message is getting out. What we're doing, making it simpler and you know, spreading the understanding of how it works is working. We are continuing to push training. We're going to be producing some educational videos and possibly certification systems moving forward. So I'm glad it's working and there's more to come.
All right, we can take one final question.
Okay. Admittedly, this is more of a statement than a question, but I'll ask anyway. Chris Woodfield, DriveNet's ARIN AC. Curious question for the room. How many people here have actually had a route hijack mitigated by having implemented RPKI? Well, someone asked, how would you know? The answer is because not every carrier is doing RPKI validation. So I can speak to an incident in general detail, but over 2 years, a company I worked for had 2 route hijacks by nation states. The first one was before we implemented RPKI. The second one was after. And the impact of the 2, well, not zero, was night and day. So can speak off the record in more details, but just holding myself up as a example of why you should do this and why you should use RPKI.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris. All right, I think we're all done, Brad.
You want me off?
All right. We're going to do a slight agenda pivot to kind of keep us on schedule this morning. So I'd like to invite ARIN Foley to come up here and provide us an update on IANA. There he is. Snuck up on me, man.
Sneaky.
I've heard. All right, big green button.
Okay. Hey everyone, my name is ARIN Foley and I work as a senior cryptographic key manager providing IANA services. Let's see. All right. Perhaps it was just my turn in the engagement rotation, or perhaps I was selected by virtue of nominative determinism, but in any case, I find myself at my first ARIN meeting to provide you all with an update. Some of this information is likely a bit remedial for this audience, but please bear with me. Without further ado, let's begin. We maintain approximately 3,000 unique Internet identifier registries. Some are well known, while some are only familiar to programmers who write code for particular types of Internet software. One subset of identifiers we manage is the number resource services, which is no secret to this crowd. This covers IPv4 and IPv6 addresses as well as autonomous system numbers. Just briefly, here's the status of address allocations. The vast majority of IPv4 addresses are designated for unicast use. For other uses, multicast, for example, IANA is responsible for direct registrations, but unicast addresses are allocated to the regional registries such as yourselves, who in turn service their respective communities. The last IPv4 allocation was made in 2011, but there was a recovery pool active for a number of years based on returned allocations, but that was exhausted in 2019. We have a very small recovery pool left, but not enough left to divide among the 5 regional internet registries that exist today. IPv6, as you know, is a very different story. We have a very large reserve. 1/8 of addresses are allocated for unicast use. Of that, there are 512/12s, of which there are 504 still to be allocated. In the work that we do, not just for RIRs, but across the spectrum of all provided services, accountability is fundamentally important to us. We strive to be the trusted home for all of the authoritative registries we maintain. To do that, we have a variety of different forms of accountability, including performance reporting, post-transaction surveys, annual community reviews, and third-party audits. These mechanisms are all designed to provide confidence in IANA services and allow the community to provide valuable feedback so we can continue to optimize our delivery. I think one of my slides got hijacked, so I was a bit confused there, sorry. Today's presentation is relatively short, and I'll now move on to the primary theme, our maintenance of the DNSSEC trust anchor. Does this red button go back? Perfect. DNS is a hierarchical system with DNSSEC following that same hierarchy. Both follow the same hierarchy as the namespace itself. At the apex of the DNS is with the namespace is the root zone itself. At the apex of the DNSSEC trust hierarchy is the trust anchor known as the key signing key, or the KSK. We manage the KSK in a very open and transparent manner to bolster confidence in the security of the KSK, which is done in a fairly novel manner. If you were to survey the industry to determine how their individual cryptographic assets are maintained, you'd likely find the normal course of business is to operate in secrecy behind closed doors. We, on the other hand, with the assistance of the community, have designed a highly transparent system which has been operating now for 13 years. Intrinsic to that design, we involve community members who are security experts located throughout the world when conducting key signing ceremonies, which occur on a roughly quarterly basis. These ceremonies follow a script containing steps to retrieve the keys from a secure enclosure, generate operational signatures used in the day-to-day administration of the root zone for the upcoming quarter. This is done to the satisfaction of the experts and participants in attendance. There's often media in attendance and a high focus on these operations. There are 7 trusted community representatives allocated to each of the 2 key management facilities we maintain. These representatives serve as ambassadors who can report to their respective communities that we are conducting these operations in a transparent and secure manner. The hope is that this will in turn bolster DNSSEC adoption and provide the global internet with a more secure user experience. We continuously seek new volunteers who meet the right criteria to serve as trusted community representatives. Some trusted community representatives are still serving in the role since its inception in 2010, and many are looking to move on to new appointments. Looking at URS. For those in the rotation, we need to maintain a pool of qualified individuals. We strive to maintain diversity in geography, skill, and gender. This provides us with a wide range of perspective and input and serves to improve confidence in DNSSEC operations overall. If you or an individual you know are interested, please submit a statement of interest at the URL provided on this slide. We are currently seeking more volunteers from the APAC and African regions in particular. While on the topic of the DNSSEC trust anchor, I'd like to provide you with some updates there. Since 2010, the KSK has only undergone 1 key replacement or rollover occurring back in 2018. We are still using that second key. Near the beginning of this year, we announced the new key rollover process would begin. Shortly after that announcement, we received a curveball from our current hardware security module provider. The hardware security module, or HSM, is the device where our keys are securely stored. The provider stated that they would be ceasing all HSM-related manufacturing in the near term. To keep our options open while we researched our next steps, we went ahead with the generation of the 3rd KSK with our current HSMs back in April and have replicated that key to the other management facility in July, but have since decided to hold off going any further with that particular key while our research continues. HSMs by design do not simply allow the transfer of cryptographic keys from one type to another without defeating the security mechanisms designed to safely store the keys during their life cycles. Because of the aforementioned curveball, and the second key rollover project has essentially turned into a combined HSM and key rollover project. So in summary, when a new hardware security module is introduced, the new key will be generated on that hardware, effectively restarting the rollover process that we began at the beginning of this year. Let's see. In other news, we're also looking at algorithm rollover requirements. Today, we use the RSA SHA-256 as the algorithm for the root zone. We're looking at alternative algorithms like elliptic curve key cryptography, which has never been done in the root zone, and we have concerns that some software may not support it. So we're working in a careful and calculated manner to make that determination. To that end, we established a community design team late last year who have been working on a set of requirements on how to make this change. And actually, a draft report was published just a couple of days ago on the ICANN website that's open for comment if anybody would like to visit it and provide any valuable feedback in that manner. And that's all I intended to cover today.
All right. If anybody has any questions for ARIN, please feel free to approach the mic. And my apologies on the issue with the slides. I received a helpful suggestion from elsewhere that perhaps we ought to start signing them to avoid hijacks. Yeah, it's a groaner. Sorry. Okay, going over to the floor.
Scott Johnson, Spacely Packets. Pursuant to the algorithmic change, the threat from quantum computing is real and present. There exists in the world today, in the hands of many positive and non-positive actors, the capability to pretty much crack a good number of the algorithms that we have in real time. NIST has just released several suites of protocols named lattice protocols that are designed to be resilient against these types of attacks, because the kind of mathematics that is done in the algorithms is well beyond the capabilities of current quantum computing architectures fundamentally, and should be for another good 10 or 15 years. That's really all I had to say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Kevin Bloomberg, ASO AC.
How you doing?
I am doing excellent, and I'd like to actually thank the collaboration with IANA and the RIR community. But I thought it would be actually helpful, since I do know this information, but I don't know if the room does. IANA handles a number of identifiers. Everybody here is aware of the 3 that is part of the RIR community. You mentioned the DNS identifiers, but you are responsible for thousands of identifiers.
Approximately 3,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you could just speak to that a little bit, I think it would give a little bit of a sense of the scope of the type of work that you're doing for this community. I think that would be very helpful.
I would love to do that, but that's not actually my focus of work, and I would be remiss to talk about the different registries. My focus in particular is on the Trust Anchor and DNSSEC.
Thank you. Okay. But it is, you mentioned it was 3,000 different
3,000 unique,
identifiers.
Approximately 3,000 different unique internet identifier registries.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Awesome. Thank you, ARIN. All right. Here we go. Moving right along, I'd like to invite John Curran to the stage to give an update on from the Number Resource Organization from the perspective of the Executive Council. We'll get the ASO flip side of this from Kevin a little bit later on.
Thank you, Hollis. Good morning, everyone. So first presentation I have the privilege of giving is the Number Resource Organization update. This is prepared by the NRO, the Number Resource Organization Executive Council. Just sort of, you've seen it before, hasn't changed much. So the NRO is also known as the ASO. It's the coordination body by which the RIRs work together. It's formed by an MOU signed in October 2003, was an addendum in 2020 that talks about the Internet Number Registry System and our mutual commitments to keep it unique and effective, globally operational, and provide consistent services. So this is how the RIRs coordinate our work together. In 2022, we reviewed our strategic plan and made sure we all understood the mission of the NRO. It's to do the joint activities of the RIRs and promote our joint registry. As you know, there's one internet number registry. We talk about the ARIN registry, but we only have a subset of the overall internet number registry, and it's the union of the 5 RIRs that provides the unique registry. And also a vision to be the single point, the flagship and global leader in terms of being able to be available as a resource for people to know that it's a central element of an open, stable, and secure internet. The executive committee is made up of the CEOs of the 5 RIRs, and it has officer duties that rotate. This year I have the privilege for 2023 of being the chair of the NRO. Paul Wilson from APNIC is the vice chair. Oscar from LACNIC is treasurer. Hans Petta is just a member. And we actually presently have no executive from AFRINIC on the executive committee. We have a permanent secretary hosted by APNIC, and Herman is our executive secretary, and Lorena also provides support to us. So they help keep the projects moving and all the information flowing. We are implementing our strategic plan. As part of the 2020 review, we realized that there's some activities we need to work even more closely than our groups would normally do on their own. Our groups do work together, but to some extent we need some oversight and project management. And so we're looking at actually bringing in someone to do overall project management responsibilities in these key areas: RPKI, cybersecurity, and government engagement. You'll see job postings, for example, on all the RIR websites. And that will help perhaps get us a more consistent set of approaches to these problems among the RIRs. Coordination groups. We do coordinate extensively today. Each of our departments has a corresponding coordination group which meets with its partners from the other RIRs. So there's quite a bit of activity, but those aren't formal. Those are just to help keep us aligned. There's no work per se done by the coordination groups that's tasked by the NRO, but we all task our individual teams to do things and use the coordination groups to work with the other RIRs to the extent necessary. This is different than what I showed earlier when we said for things like RPKI, we actually believe we need a set of common objectives and common program management. So the coordination groups are kind of the fallback on how our staff work with their counterparts in an organized manner. Finances, the NRO has a general operations budget of $582,000. That's the secretariat support, the meetings we conduct, the chair of the ASO AC, our advisory council, moving to the traveling to ICANN, and internet governance support. We support a number of internet governments, for example, the Internet Governance Forum. We also provide a contribution to ICANN in 2 pieces. It adds up to $823,000 a year. It has been $823,000 a year since the inception of ICANN in 1999. We predate ICANN, so we've been supporting it since it was formed and are still supporting it. We've recently broken out into clear categories what we're paying them for. The IANA contract, we have an IANA numbering services contract, which provides for the IANA team to manage the numbers part of the numbers registry. This includes the V4, V6, and ASN free pools. And then we also provide a voluntary contribution of $173 above and beyond that, which is for all the ASO functions. We have an ASO that works on global policy, elects members to the ICANN board of directors, and participates a little more engaged with ICANN. The sum of that's $823. We have NRO programs. You saw the program management I talked about. And we have a stability fund that we've all pledged to. So those are sort of the financial rundown. And just in terms of cost, the direct cost of the NRO is divided based on the size of the RIRs, based on the registration services revenue of each of the parties. So ARIN is about 29%, RIPE 36%, LACNIC, APNIC. AFRINIC is not paying at this time because it's in an unusual status. So we're dividing it up a little differently. ARIN situation, the unusual status. I'm going to talk about global RIR update, cover this in more detail. You should know the RIRs collectively are providing on-site legal support to the extent that over the last year and a half, when ARIN has needed additional legal review, we've offered that, and ARIN actually has counsel on site in Mauritius. Sometimes our advice is taken, sometimes it's not, but it's available for a second look at these challenges. We are engaging with regional stakeholders in the ARIN internet community to see what can be done to help advance ARIN, get it back into a stable situation. And we're also preparing to, once ARIN gets to the point of having elections, preparing to engage to get the entire community involved. And I will talk a lot more about this, so I'm not going to dwell on it in the report. Publications, a couple of things the NRO publishes that are pretty important. The global internet number statistics, you see it now and then, I'm not going to bring it up now, but the status of the IPv4, IPv6, and ASN free pools, allocations that have been done, and run rate over time. We produce those reports, and they're on NRO statistics. We also provide a comparative policy overview, comparing the various categories of policies among the RIRs and how they differ. So registration, issuance, ASNs, V4, V6, transfers, and so you can get at a glance how the policies in one region and the policies in the other might be structured differently or have materially different provisions. So there's an IANA review committee. As I said, we pay for the IANA numbering services to update the registries as we ask. We put in requests, generally somewhere between 2 and 6 requests a year. And the IANA updates those. It also provides reverse DNS services. We review the service that we get from IANA, and that's actually done by the community to make sure that it's clear and open. We have a IANA review committee made up of 3 members from each region, and they review the reports we get out of the IANA. I will say the reports we get out of the IANA are always wonderful, noting exemplary performance. So the review committee has a very easy job confirming exemplary performance. The IANA team and the supporting team at ICANN have been wonderful. And we publish the review committee report, and the review committee report is online. The IANA review committee at this time, present members, Chris Sathata, Nick Nugent, John Sweeting are members from ARIN. You see the members from the other region. We also participate in the ICANN Empowered Community, and this is a very interesting function that people don't really know about. When the IANA stewardship transition happened, and I don't know how many people know what that is, but it was a contract between the US government and ICANN for ICANN to do the IANA functions, do the names, numbers, and protocol support. It was a nominal agreement between NTIA and ICANN to do that. When NTIA said this is running under community supervision and doesn't need us to have a contract for that, they agreed to transition the stewardship of the oversight of ICANN to the community. And what that meant is that each of the various organizations that were involved, so for example, the numbers community got the IANA services agreement, the thing that provides the services and that review committee handles. The IETF has an MOU for protocol parameters, and the DNS community has constituencies within ICANN that effectively propose the policies and ratified by the ICANN board that are used by IANA. But above all of that, the community said it might be necessary in case the ICANN board or IANA leadership does not perform, it might be necessary to have a community control mechanism. And that's the ICANN Empowered Community. So in effect, when ICANN makes a decision that does things like change its bylaws or appoint directors or adopt a substantial budget, strategic plan, or activity plan, those are actually ratified by the ICANN Empowered Community, which is made up of organizations such as the ASO is a member of that, and in the DNS side, the DNS constituent organizations are there. And it's just to provide an absolute backstop if the ICANN organization weren't performing in the way expected. The empowered community actually has vast powers to change things. I will say that the empowered community has been working very well, and nearly everything that ICANN proposes has been in keeping with its bylaws and the community direction, so all of it gets ratified very smoothly. So that's the NRO, and I'll take questions on this before I do the global RIR update. No? Any questions, remote questions?
Do we have any questions for John on the NRO?
Local
I don't
questions?
see anything from
remote?
Anybody
Intergalactic?
typing?
Oh, okay.
Nope.
Let me give the global RIR update. So this is ARIN's update on what's happening globally. I don't usually give this because usually we don't have a lot to say. Each RIR presents its own report, and you guys get to hear that, and we sometimes do that at these meetings. But sometimes it's necessary for me to brief the ARIN community on what's happening globally in the RIR system. This is one of those occasions. So there's 5 RIRs, we all know that, and I'm not going to talk about most of them. I am going to talk about one of them. So ARIN does not normally comment on disputes or litigation occurring in another RIR. In general, we don't talk about things like that because it's the business of that other RIR, and they'll handle the business in due course. They'll handle their disputes, they'll handle their legal matters, they'll handle their court actions, they'll correct things, and everything will be normal, and it doesn't affect the ARIN region substantially. It's the business of another RIR. Okay. When that doesn't happen, I actually have to keep you informed because there could be things happening in the RIR system that affect you. For example, we could have an RIR become not operationally stable. We could have an RIR that doesn't provide its portion of the Internet number registry servers. So I have an obligation to apprise you of that possibility, and we're certainly there at this point with respect to AFRINIC. So I'm going to talk about the status of AFRINIC. Now, to do that, I have to highlight things that have happened there. And we've taken reasonable care in trying to reflect what these are. But I have to say something. It might not be perfect. There could be an error or omission in the fact that we took good due diligence and tried to confirm everything we're conveying. It might be imperfect. If it's imperfect and you're one of the parties listening to the recording of this or looking at the slides at some future time, and we've made a mistake, let me know. Facts matter. And we will, with diligence, update and try to correct, and I'll try to point out in the future and make sure that if we got the record wrong here somehow, we'll try to correct it, because as I said, facts are important. Having said that, I have no sympathy or remorse. If there is any confusion about anything I'm about to present, it is not the responsibility of ARIN. It's the responsibility of those who haven't kept the community informed. And I don't really have a lot of sympathy for them. If for some reason something's wrong here, recognize the people who haven't been communicating are the reason we don't have a better status. So take note. With that pleasantry aside, I'll now begin. So in 2020, AFRINIC completed a registry audit. And one of the customers was sought for more information, and AFRINIC ultimately determined that the resources weren't being used for the purposes issued and needed to be revoked after a suitable time to allow the customers to migrate. The party, Cloud Innovation Limited, Principal Mr. Liu Heng, disputed AFRINIC's authority to enforce this provision of the agreement. And that was 2020. That's the beginning of our story. Mr. Liu Heng engaged in several actions to prevent having to return the address blocks, and I won't go through all the details. There was a motion at one point to freeze AFRINIC's accounts, and thus had the ability to hamper AFRINIC's operations. After about 2.5 months, AFRINIC successfully had the freezing order modified and removed. In 2022, an injunction entered in court prevented AFRINIC from holding its annual elections just prior to the AFRINIC AGMM. I want to point out this was something in the past I actually communicated incorrectly because I said it happened after the meeting. No, just prior to the meeting, an injunction was entered, and as a result, they didn't have their own annual election. And thus, coming out of that, they did not have enough directors to have quorum. They were what we call inquorate, unable to hold a meeting with all of the directors present, enough to conduct business. And that prevents them from, well, appointing temporary directors, holding another meeting, holding an election. It's a pretty debilitating situation, and it occurred in 2022 after their AGMM. In 2023, in April, there was a file by one of the directors, a registered member of the organization, to seek the ability to hold elections. In September, there was a court order, just September 23, just recently, to appoint official receiver of Mauritius to oversee the affairs of AFRINIC, hold an election for the AFRINIC board within 6 months, and work towards the appointment of a CEO. This is what courts do when an organization doesn't have a governing board and doesn't look like it has a way out. Should not be surprised that after a year without a quorate board, that someone appointed an official receiver. In September, a few days later, the NRO issued a statement. And one quote from the statement: the NRO welcomes the recent developments in legal proceedings affecting AFRINIC. With successful execution, these developments will restore AFRINIC to a functional governance with the election of an executive board and appointment of a CEO. Because an AFRINIC that had operated for a year without a functional board is a risk to our registry system, and there was no path to get us back to having a member-elected board for AFRINIC. 28 September, we're getting kind of right around the corner, just a few weeks ago, an appeal was lodged against the official receiver, resulting in an automatic stay of the order and suspension of the official receiver's authority. So AFRINIC went back to having no governing board. There was a filing by Cloud Innovation challenging the acceptance of the AFRINIC appeal, suspending the automatic stay and thus restoring the authority of the official receiver. So in the 2nd of October, just a little while ago, we again had an official receiver. On October 4th, there was also an order issued preventing some of the previous directors, Benjamin Eschen and Viv Pakiak, from acting on behalf of AFRINIC because their term has expired, amongst other things. This got us to just the other day, where Benjamin Eschen had a discharge of that order and discharged the suspension of the stay against the official receiver. Thus, again, the official receiver has been set aside. He's operating under a stay, and his authority is suspended. So again, AFRINIC is without an official receiver to run the organization and without a governing board. That's where we are right now. AFRINIC is back to it where it was effectively before the order was entered. A lot of fun. Okay. ARIN's assessment. These are not facts. These are subjective views of the organization. Need to be very clear here. Let's see, there remains significant litigation, is for sure. All of the court cases I'm not talking about. There are numerous court cases against AFRINIC, not even going over those. However, there's still insufficient directors to convene a board meeting or a members meeting as necessary to elect directors. Petitions for the court for appointment of temporary directors have not been granted. There's a pending appeal, and that pending appeal was put on stay and then now is refreshed. With that pending appeal, the appeal of the appointment of the OR, I will say 10 to 12 months before that appeal is heard. So we do not know if we will have an official receiver for probably a year's time at AFRINIC. At this time, AFRINIC continues to operate without significant impact to services. And I use the word significant. You can't operate an organization without a governing board and not have some risk. You have to pay contracts and people, and you don't necessarily have a budget. You're operating at a little bit of a risk just there alone. Staff like to have an organization to operate in. It's true that it's nice to actually know that there's a governing board and that there's a management structure above you. There's no CEO and there's no governing board. So obviously the staff are there getting the job done. I'll use the term heroic. It's heroic what the AFRINIC staff are doing, keeping it running under these circumstances. Next steps to be determined. There's no clear path at this time for AFRINIC to a member election of a board of directors, and that's a problem. We've gone a year without one, and it's almost an assumption of a registry that will have a member-elected board. This is problematic. As you can see, even the NRO, we have challenges doing some things because we'd like to work with AFRINIC in doing them, and we're kind of doing them for the system, and we don't have a voice representing the AFRINIC region at the NRO level. It's also, there could be any number of events that AFRINIC would be unable to respond to because it lacks a governing board. There's still a possibility. We don't know what's going to happen with the official receiver. As you sort of saw, those legal events were all dated in the last 2 weeks. So to say that we know the status right now and it's stable would be a lie. There could be other events just subsequent to what just happened. So while I say the official receivers probably will or will not happen at the hearing of the appeal, which will take about a year, we don't know. There could be other developments. We're not a party to that at ARIN, so it's very hard to determine what the moving pieces are. We have offered, as I said, we've offered legal assistance, we've offered financial assistance. I know the other RIRs have offered same. ICANN has actually offered assistance in terms of a neutral party that's a technical expert in registry operations. But we're all not parties to this. We're all standing outside. I will say that the primary interest here is protecting the registrants in the AFRINIC region. There are people who have resources registered in the AFRINIC registry. They have rights to those resources. They need to be protected no matter what happens. And so as much as we think about possible ways of getting involved, nearly all of them have high risk, more risk than necessarily waiting out this process. At this time, ARIN does not have a plan to directly get involved. That could change if it looks like this isn't going to help. I don't know the status of the other RIRs, obviously. I don't speak for them. But we're all on standby looking for someone to bring a path forward that gets it to a member election. As I said, there's the official receiver order did get us on a path that would have an election within 6 months, but one of the previous directors has appealed that. We have not seen to what end, what goal, or how that serves the AFRINIC community. So we're looking for more information here. And with that, I'll open this up to questions. Oh, come forth, brave people. Come on.
Please feel free to approach the mic. I see we have one question coming in from our virtual attendees. If you'd like to start with that, John.
Sure. Louis Lee, Google Fiber, past NRO number council member. Does ARIN need to make any changes to our structure, processes, or anything else to prevent significant pending litigation from significantly affecting our operations?
I'm having trouble making out the words. What is the question?
The question was, hold on, let me pull it up again.
Does ARIN need to do anything to prevent similar damage?
Yeah, do we need to do anything, make any changes to our processes to protect our organization? Thank you.
Operationally, AFRINIC continues to operate. That's fine. The formation of our coordination through the NRO structure is such that the NRO takes action on the NRO Advisory Council. And the NRO Advisory Council, while it doesn't have a member from AFRINIC, is fully capable of executing decisions on behalf of the NRO. So we continue to operate. We'd like a member from AFRINIC, but we don't have one with the departure of the CEO. So we're able to function. We don't need to change any of our processes. It is problematic, though, because clearly any substantial change that we needed to do among the RIRs in running the registry system, we would not be able to get Afrinic's concurrence, we would just do it, and they would have to deal with it after the fact, and that's obviously suboptimal. You don't want to change a registry system that part of the globe is a member of without them having a voice in the room, yet there's no structure for them to have that voice. So,
thank you.
Lee.
Lee Howard, IPv4 Global Bay Hilco Stream Bank, and also, as it happens, former NRO NC member. What was the basis of the challenge for the receivership?
I will not go into the specifics. There's legal. You could argue merits one way or the other. The short version is that the receiver was appointed by the court under the understanding that there was not going to be any representation of Afrinic because those people in the room and their legal representatives didn't constitute a board. And so a single director cannot speak on behalf of an organization. Short summary. Note that a director, however, has a vested interest in an organization, and if the organization does something and the director may have some liability, they're still an interested party. So there's I could argue legally both sides. That's what courts are for.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Mr. Owen DeLong.
Owen DeLong. Full disclosure, I do some consulting for cloud innovation, so I am more aware of the details than I wish to be. But yeah, hiss all you want. To comment on Louis Lee's question, no, I don't see ARIN being likely to depart from its bylaws and its registration services agreements to such an extent that it would start randomly going after members that it didn't like just to try and reclaim their resources out of malice. So I don't think ARIN needs to change anything or is at risk.
I know you've characterized Afrinic's behavior, and there's a dispute on that, but just thank you. Next.
Sorry, I want to point out that hissing is actually a violation of our code of conduct.
Right. So I'm trying to point that out indirectly, but I'll use the word yes. Let's not characterize organizations' behavior that way.
Scott Johnson, Spacely Packets. It appears that there is a non-zero possibility of a complete operational failure of Afrinic at some point. Can I ask you to speak to the possible ramifications of that potential event?
Sure, I expected that to come up. So let me talk about the DNS, okay? Now, you may not think that's relevant, but in the DNS system, all of the DNS registries have escrow data with ICANN. There's an emergency registry operator program so that if a registry disappears, ICANN can activate the emergency registry operator program and feed it data, and the DNS registrants will continue to be served even though it was their TLD operator that disappeared. And that's because the DNS is a highly structured system with many, many players, hundreds of players. In the case of the RIRs, we're 5 loosely coupled operations. And while we all have our own disaster recovery plans and contingency plans, we had not done formal recovery planning for a complete RIR failure. And should we do that? Well, I guess now, but it's a great question, and it's one that I know people are looking at. The RIRs get recognized through a process that ends with an RIR declaring its conformance to a document called ICP2. Internet Consensus Policy 2 was adopted by the ICANN board, and it was written by the RIR community, and it has some standards. It says you have a member-elected board, and you'll have certain governance in a certain region, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't call for escrow of data and commitment to such. I know there's some discussion among the internet community, among folks like the ASO, the Address Supporting Organization Advisory Council, the ASO AC, that they would to look at maybe ICP2 should be updated. But that doesn't exist today. So today, what we have is what we have. And what we have today is, I know a number of RIRs have taken measures to do snapshots of the Afrinic data. If Afrinic were to suddenly become inoperable, I am fairly confident that if that was confirmed and everyone agreed on that and all the pointers were swung, that a frozen instance of Afrinic would be stood up, and that it would reflect the who is RDAP, IRR, RPKI information that we know to the best of our knowledge. Not perfect, but to the best of our knowledge. But that's frozen. That's literally what was last week. There's no organization, no governing body, there's no nothing. It's just a snapshot. And going beyond that is very complicated because even if you could build an operating proto-Afrinic, you don't have contracts with the customers. You don't know actually who the customers are. You know who they are in your database, but you don't know who represents them or who validates them. Imagine effectively org recovery for an entire region and the potential hijacking and misappropriation that might occur, particularly because in some cases, the record keeping is not to a conformance standard that the other RARs are used to, depending on what country they're in. It varies across each of the economies, and you'd need local knowledge that you don't have. So the possibilities of org recovery and mistakes is very high. Plus, you don't have a contract with them. Not to mention the fact that it's never been done. There's not necessarily a technical or RAR system basis for doing it. So the best you might rely on is if Afrinic were to have a complete operational failure, is a snapshot would probably be set up by the other RARs and ICANN to that purpose. Going beyond that, I do not know if we can, as rapidly as we hope, establish the necessary framework that doesn't exist today sort of after the fact. And that means anything beyond that is purely speculation. Probably more than you wanted to know, but you're entitled to know. Yes.
Hi, Chris Tassett, Tassett Law. So I think the biggest risk to any RIR is the risk of board capture. And in that regard, I want to commend ARIN for some of the measures it's taken recently, more specifically increasing the size of the board and imposing term limits. I think those are two very important safeguards, and I hope that vigilance will continue at the board level as well, because that's really critical too, so we don't suffer a similar fate in the future.
Thank you. Good point. I will note at this time, Afrinic does not have a risk of board capture because, well, it actually has no governing board at the present moment. So there's nothing to capture. We'll see what happens if there's ever an election. But for now, I will say any board might be better than no board. Okay, if there's no further questions, thank you for your time. I hope this has been informative.
Thank you, John. With that, we're going to go to break. We are going to restart at 11, so this is going to be a quick one. We have our virtual presenter joining us from Lithuania, so we need to be back and start on time for his presentation. So I know a lot of you are going to probably have questions or things you want to discuss in the hall, but let's try to keep it brief and come back so that we can give our guest speaker the courtesy of an audience. Thank you.
When I'm lonely in the dark, I know you are with me, yeah. Don't you see that I need you so much? Don't you see that I love you so much? Oh na 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 na, oh na 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 na, Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it'll cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering why my mind keeps on spinning. This isn't how living to me was told. Why am I like this? Something's always amiss. Can't put my finger on it, but it's there. Wait for it to subside, but my mind won't apply. Waiting for the clear. Is it bad sometimes? I like it when I lose control. There's something in it that's so beautiful. Listen, I can see the light but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm doing my best not to run away. Sitting throwing rocks across the pavement, hoping it'll cave in and swallow me whole. Wondering how the world keeps on spinning, kinda scared of living when it unfolds. Hard to see the light when everything is silent, waiting for the clear. Thankful I'm alive, but terrified of dying. But hey, I'm still here. Is it bad sometimes? I like it when I lose control. There's something in it that's so beautiful. Listen, I can see the light but I can also see the bones decay. I don't know what else there is to say. I'm doing my best not to run away. You're the night sky trying to make me see your stars, but the dark gets so lonely. Now I see violet, I can feel silence, and the dark's all that I see. When your stars have burnt out and your heart makes no sound, I'll find violet in your eyes. You'll always be my night sky. You'll always be my night sky. Be my night sky. You'll always be my south, I'll find valid in your eyes. You'll always be my night sky.
All right, folks, it's 11 a.m. If I could get you to come back in and take your seats, please. Our remote presenter is about ready to come online. I think we've got them all queued up. All right. I'd like to welcome Vaidotas Januszka from IPXO to do, I get it right? Did I get it right? I did, yes! To present his research around networks and IP management obstacles. With that, take it away.
Pleasure to be here and have an opportunity to share with you some insights that we discovered. So let's begin. As a starting point, based on our experience, we had a hypothesis that despite the maturity of IPv4 and the IPv6 is coming along the way, there are still a handful of obstacles that managing the data related to the IP addresses themselves are there actually. So let's go through the journey and dig deeper. Next slide, please. Good. So to validate our hypothesis and understand these obstacles, we conducted the research. We interviewed over 100 companies that use IP actually as part of their core business enabler. Those companies were mainly based in US and Europe. I know that the term, data related to the IP address is broad. So to narrow it down, we explore topics of key interest related to RPKI and ROA handling, who is data management, like allocations, domain delegations, route objects. We also spoke about geolocation and abuse-related data management, and their plans about IPv6 adoption. We actually saw those topics related to Internet's core building and governing elements that shape your presence on the Internet as such and being main subject of our research. That was our interest. Next slide, please. So before we move on to discovered obstacles, let's start with an overview showing the distribution of business verticals and their managed IP space that participated in the research. Worth to note that IP addresses count encompasses their owned IP addresses and leased IP addresses, and total amount of the space allocated in scope here is about 10 billion. Actually, mainly that comes from ARIN and RIPE regions. When you look at the industry distribution, we have industries like cloud providers, hosting, proxy, data mining, telco, ISPs, and LIRs and others. One thing to note before we move on is I would like to state a few things. The companies, as you see, are in a different business verticals. They're at a various operational maturity levels. Some have different expertise levels in the core networking, from very deep knowledge to more all-hands IT guys that know just how to configure server with the route and default gateway concepts, and that's enough for them. Some of them are running their own infrastructure and providing services to others, while some use infrastructure as a service to run their services on top. Yet one common thing for all of them, IP is their business enabler and key component, and the data around those IPs are very important for them to run the businesses. Different scenarios, of course, bring different challenges and perspectives, so apologies, as I say in advance, that some of those obstacles might sound generic or irrelevant to one or the other industry. But regardless of that fact, they're still valid at large because they've been stated as such. And then I really believe and hope that some of those obstacles mentioned here on observations will echo to your own experiences and stories you might have heard or actually been part of. So please move to the next slide. Now, in order to have some sort of a way to pinpoint these obstacles, we decided that, to take a journey from actually obtaining IPs all the way to using them. So let's start. Starting point is actually first step in a simplified version. The internet functions do a bunch of routers speaking BGP and exchanging the routing information with their neighbors, right? It's like in a simple shape and form of it. Key payload of that exchange actually includes IP address and AS numbers that define networks and their origins. Well, both of these elements are assigned by IRRs to organizations, and there are currently 5 RIRs, right? It's like not a Wild West. The allocation of IP addresses, the allocation of ISN numbers, they are governed. There are special policies around that, which is good. Yet core concepts and fundamentals in data that is being managed is more or less the same in its kind of shape and form and meaning. It's IP address, IS number, ownership data, contacts, etc. Yet every RIR has their special twist here and there when it comes to managing that data and how it is treated and etc. I personally, appreciate that. Nevertheless, we heard that this is seen as an extra complexity or obstacle managing that fundamental data from the participants that were in our research and had resources from multiple RIRs. Now, once you get over that part, you have IP addresses, you sort of, what do? You want to understand and keep track of what you have in your stock, what you put in use and where, who is using it, and etc., etc. This is usually something that, de facto to most of the network guys smells and looks like you need an IPAM system, and it should be doing that. But funny enough, most of our respondents, and I would say industry to an extent, view IPAM more as an internal network covering element and system, usually part of some sort of a DDI solution, leaving, say, the external IP address management subject to the best IPAM out there, the best system, the best invention, Excel. Excel keeps a lot of things running across the industries. That's like not a secret. But jokes aside, yes, Excel is one of the IPAMs used most of the companies, or simply put, some file is used to document all those allocations. Now, coming back to my statement that, I previously mentioned that company maturity levels differ. And actually, some of the companies have invested money and time building their own IPAMs. They've been built by some, engineer or some third party. It's usually a combo of IPAM and some sort of CRM system to map that, because usually the traditional IPAMs have a data like VLAN allocation, row number in the data center, etc. They have customers sort of associated with that. And the sad part of it, that those systems were once written by someone, they run, and if it runs, don't touch it. It, to an extent, sort of resembles a little bit like DDI solutions that are put in place. You put them in place and you have them for 10 plus years, because it's a foundational, element of your network. So touching it, moving it, if there is no necessity, you usually avoid doing that. And in my career, I just seen like 2 cases where we sort of been on a journey changing the DDI solution underneath it, but it had survived 10 plus years as such. Now let's move further. Next slide, please. So once you are over with RIR and IPAM parts, you sort of can straight away jump to configuring the routing part. You get the IPs, you document their location and associated data and just start using them. Simple. But actually, when it's done by one person that knows the drill and is responsible end to end, you sort of know your ways of doing that. You prepare, you document, and you configure with love and respect. But usually organizations have different people and roles to manage the IP address allocations, the IP people, as I call them. They manage the real records. People who own and configure the edge routing. What I mean by edge routing is actually internet-facing boxes. or in the peering points, the people that actually understand the BGP, they know the BGP communities, what they mean, they know routing policies, etc. They care about IRR records, they care about ROAs, they care about prefix lists, and etc. And on top of that, if you are a bigger enterprise, etc., there are teams that actually are responsible for data center networks, for the campus, for the WAN part. Where the disconnect is, right? The people that are responsible for the edge, they think about aggregates and summaries. The people that are deeper down in the network, they think about, more specific part of that. And each of them are involved in making sure that there is a good documentation and good housekeeping in place to make sure that every single IP is accounted for and known, and all the whois accuracy is in place, all the routing policies are in place, everything is in place. And actually, this can be very well orchestrated and practiced process, right? It's like nothing to be invented here, it's well known, etc. But there is one but, when it's people, no automation, sometimes mistakes happen. And those mistakes could, happen not in a bad will of people, it could be due to some sort of, emergency, some incident. You need to bring the business back. You need to change some routing ad hoc. Documentation follows, and sometimes it's forgotten. Obviously, like inherited risk or inherited results of such setup is most of our respondents said that they are not 100% sure that their documentation is up to date. What that means, if you're not sure about your inventory, you can be sure if you use it efficiently, right? It's simple as that. Next slide, please. Now, we have IPs, we have routed and alive in the internet. Now we need to move up the stack. Moving up the stack, once we are on the internet, we have apps and their payload on top, right? The IP addresses don't travel themselves, from one destination to another. There is some sort of an intent. Intent is being, application payload. The payload can be good, can be bad. It's a very kind of simplified view of that. Internet is full of stuff, right? Of good things and bad things. Long story short, to tackle the bad intents, some of the bad intents leave actually a mark around IPs that limit the freedom of IPs usage. This good intention actually to identify bad and good actors based on IPs was developed in different companies, like, security companies have their products and have their lists of, blocks, and organizations in a distributed fashion, organizations driven by community, for example. And the result of that is multiple block lists with their own specific procedures, when and how those IPs need to be reported, how to get them out of there. And last but not least, due to the lack of standard, lack of aggregation in this domain, it is very hard to understand where one or the other IP is listed and what actions are necessary actually to take this IP out of that list once you sorted with the root cause, the bad actor. Now, other thing that is affecting the user's experience on the internet is geolocation. It was actually designed and built for the great purpose, so you could have a personalized experience when you are in the internet. It is also kind of a way to protect copyright things and the content. It's amazing. But like IP reputation, this domain as such evolved in a also distributed manner too. This brought multiple geolocation providers to the market. They have their own secret recipes, how they make decisions, where the actual IP is. Some are more robust, some are less. Some have update period of a week, some of a day or even a month. As a result, the same IP can be seen like, in different geolocation databases at the same time being in Paris or Tokyo. So where the heck is it, right? So when you have that many geolocation providers, one thing is, as I mentioned, how to understand that they geolocate my IPs correctly. I want to make sure that my all IPs are seen as they are in those geolocation providers, all of them. Well, it's not like, we are powerless here. We have a RFC 8805 standard. that we can use to construct the geo feed, talk to those geolocation providers, say, here's my geo feed, treat me as a trusted source of that data. Thank you, bye. But the thing is that, sometimes those geolocation providers slip through their radars some non-legitimate source of geolocation, and my feed is overwritten by others. Of course, there is kind of now an RFC 9092 picking its kind of pace and then having a better coverage that should, to an extent, add extra control over legitimacy, who is actually, where is actually the, feed's legitimacy coming from, but it's under the who is data, right? It's great, but it's yet another data point to manage. Funny thing is that no one talked much about geolock object in the RARs, but that's the case. So next slide, please. Good. So we went through the list of mentioned obstacles, and those obstacles can cause gaps in data consistency around IP data. And that actually poses risks to few aspects. One of them is stability, right? How can it affect stability? Our routing can be dropped or wrongly routed due to inconsistent or incorrect routing policies defined by ROA or IRR records. Your client emails could be dropped if you're listed in some blacklist and you don't have a clue if you're listed in the blacklist. Of course, there are means, to prevent that, but still, it's a possibility. And last but not least, when it comes to your users that can't actually access the content they paid for if the geolocation is wrong, right? So planning. If you don't trust your data, and as I mentioned, it's very hard to understand or be actually in a 100% control of your data where your IP is at, you can't plan properly. Every single time you want to kind of, plan something and see where you're at, you need to burn time and do the audit. And that could be cumbersome because we're talking about different data domains like who is data, routing policy related data, geolocation data, you name it. Security. In a simple terms, your IPs can be hijacked. If you don't take care of your, ROA, IRR records, you can have hijacks happening. Other thing, it's like obvious. If you don't understand where your IPs are at, that means you are not in control of your perimeter as an enterprise, as a company. When you're not in control of your perimeter, what that means, you can have gaps in your, firewalls, in your controls, where some bad actors can just, use that and do an attack. And last but not least, it can actually, affect your transition speed to IPv6. You just burn energy and time maintaining before, trying to be efficient, trying to have a data consistent, etc. So, why bother with yet another protocol if you have, issues with the IPv4 domain? Next slide, please. Now, based on all that input during the interviews, we also asked, the participants what they would feel is sort of a way out of, this situation and have more control over the obstacles. And they mentioned things like, they want to have a system or see a system that would enable them to spot data inconsistency between different planes. What do we mean by planes? As I mentioned before, the routing registry data, the routing policy data, the actual routing configuration, geolocation, and other things. To have it like a system work for you, not you working for the system, there is a view that, the system should provide recommendations on what data points need to be synchronized. So the system should tell them, look, there is an inconsistency between route and ROA. Do you want to fix that? Should I fix that in the end state? Also, have an option to define a status quo of your IP data. Tell that to the system that, look, this is how I want it to be in a perfect state. Please monitor and ensure it. Sounds like utopia, but why not? Other thing is also help me understand where I have opportunities. If I want to expand my network, if I want to bring on more customers, what can I do, to better utilize my existing resources? And last but not least, it's an obvious one, be API enabled. API everything nowadays, so it's not a kind of surprise to see it here. API enabled for the current and future tech stacks integrations. Next slide, please. There should be next slide. Oh, good. The future. So of course, all those things, imagine they're working, the system is taking care of your worries, what to do with your all spare free time. Of course, move to IPv6 and, get more time back to deal with other challenges and maybe unknown fun things that IPv6 might bring along with wider and wider adoption. So next slide, please. Yeah, and here it is. Thank you. I know why I overrun. Apologies. Had lots to tell you or share with you. Any questions? Do we have time for that?
Thank you so much, Vaidotas. I think what we're going to do is if folks have questions, they can email them to meetings@ARIN, and we will get them forwarded on to you. Okay?
Good.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We're happy to have you here.
Too boring. Thank you.
All right. So we're moving along. Next up, Christian Johnson, scurrying to the stage. He's going to give us an update on information security at ARIN. Like not in general, because that would take a long time. Oh, just in general? Okay. Yeah, that was...
I'm looking for the button of death. I switched hands, so hopefully it doesn't naturally rest on. Fair enough. Good morning, everyone. It's still technically morning. Good morning. My name's Christian Johnson. I am the Chief Information Security Officer for ARIN, and I'm really happy to be able to be here today, not just because it's San Diego, but because it's a fantastic opportunity for me to be able to share with you all the fantastic news about security at ARIN. I don't say that sarcastically, although it probably sounds like I was saying it sarcastically. Yeah. Very briefly, I'll provide a quick overview, a little bit of the security update, talk about the compliance initiatives that we've been working in. Some of these slides, if you were at ARIN 51, they're going to look conspicuously similar to some of the conversation that I had there. There's a reason behind that. It might not be a super strong reason, but I think it's important that not everyone attends every single meeting, so there are some folks who are here who weren't there. And so I want to briefly touch on a few things. One of them, very important to me, is the ability to communicate about security. There's a lot of nuance in words. I think that was mentioned earlier, maybe yesterday. There's a lot of nuance in words. And I want to sort of strip out some of that nuance. When we talk about security in general, it could be information security, computer security, data security, information assurance. We love creating words. In some industries, security is not immune to that. For the sake of conversation, unless it's necessary, these things mean the same thing as a part of this conversation, just to allow for inclusion for those people who are not security professionals or who haven't done it as an add-on extra duty at some point. It allows us to have that conversation. I could say number 2 every single year because it's my priority every single year. Security there's been just a tremendous amount of work done in security over the past year. I could not give strong enough kudos to the engineering team, to HR, to every department within ARIN who has stepped up and contributed to the initiatives that I'm going to come up here and talk about and sort of by proxy take credit for. But I do want to give a round of applause up front to all of the departments within, all the staff within ARIN and all the hard work. You're doing that blindly because I haven't actually given the presentation. So now let me give the presentation that makes that, justifies all that. One of the things that I also want to do is, as a further dedication or proof of the dedication that we have towards security at ARIN, we brought on a new information security manager, Anthony Clark. Anthony, could you raise your hand or stand up, one of the two? Either one. Anthony, new to the ARIN organization. very happy, very lucky to have him here. His depth of experience is a real benefit to the organization, and it's going to play out in the years to come. Just super happy to have you here. Welcome. So I'm big on basics, focusing on the basics. It doesn't matter if it's sports, it doesn't matter if it's cybersecurity, it doesn't matter what it is. The focus on basics and successful execution of the basics often leads to success. And if you're one of those people like me who just really loves to read about unfortunate security incidents that happen, and they get published every single day. It doesn't matter what the publication is, you can read about another unlucky organization. More often than not is because the organization failed to do the basics properly with regards to security. And so that is one of the reasons why I try to focus on that and drill with that at the organization at any given time. A lot of this stuff is none of this is especially exciting within the realms of what we do. There's not any bullet that I'm going to talk about that says that we're integrating the newest artificial intelligence security tools here at ARIN. No, this is the fundamentals, annual information security training. That's one of the things that they point to. As fundamental as it is, and the industry kind of shrugs that off on occasion because of the fact that it seems so fundamental, and yet when we talk about the number one risks to any organization, it comes down to the education of its staff, and in this case with regards to security. That's one of the reasons why there's a big focus that we have on information security training, phishing awareness exercises. We used to do those, at one point we did those once a year. We're up to doing those monthly within the organization. We've seen a dramatic improvement in our reporting capabilities when staff are the targets of those phishing exercises. We've seen a dramatic increase in the reporting there, and that's incredibly positive overall. One of the things that I was asked to point to in particular, this would be one of those things that I would slide right past. It's one of those things I don't really care to talk about in public forums, but I was asked to sort of settle on this for a second, and that was to talk about the fact that we held an incident response exercise this year, and in particular, we had the Board of Trustees in attendance on that. So it was a higher level incident response exercise. It wasn't one of the more lower level working with the specific incident response team and drilling specific response playbooks and things of that nature. It was really working with the board to share how we would be engaging with them in case there was an incident that we experienced at ARIN. A lot of times that's overlooked, engaging the board so that they're familiar with what they would experience in those environments. It's not the only exercises that we'll be committing to this year. We also do have a technical exercise that we're going to be running later on in the year for our incident response team, but very important that we were able to engage the board, bring them in, and share that experience with them. And some of this other stuff was actually mentioned. We talked about two-factor authentication. Mark talked about specifically the penetration test that we had earlier in the year. We've now moved to running quarterly vulnerability scans. Some of the reasoning behind that's going to unfold on subsequent slides, whereas we were doing that annually previously as a part of a more broad, not just a penetration test per se, but a broader security audit. So this will also look familiar, the specific compliance initiatives that we work on. So the first one you'll see is the NIST, in particular, the logo there is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, but we leverage NIST standards, special publications broadly, as I think most organizations do. And so we're constantly, a lot of the stuff that we built our program on, the security controls were built off of the NIST framework, but we do continue to monitor releases and updates that are provided by NIST. And so they continue to shape the way that we do things at ARIN. We are working a SOC 2 audit program as well as a PCI DSS. So SOC, Systems and Organization Controls, this is a type of security framework, if you're not familiar with it, that allows you to look at a specific service or look at a specific product and certify the security of that product or service. There is some, just like with PCI DSS, there are some broad organizational controls that are a part of that. And with PCI DSS in particular, the payment card industry data security standard, applies to any organization that allows you to use a payment card, a credit card or a debit card to make a payment. So that applies to every organization, whether it's the gas station with a card reader at the pump, all the way up to your very large unnamed online sales platforms. And we just happen to be included in that. So specifically with regards to SOC 2, so I provided an update at ARIN 51. There's not a whole lot of change here. This is the scope of this, again, broad organizational security, and it's focused, we were focusing on RPKI specifically, the security of RPKI. We did complete the Type 1 audit in December of 2022, and we had an audit period that we just completed at the end of September, and we're expecting our final report by October 31st. Actually, there is something new to add to this, and that's as of this morning, I received the draft report from the auditor, and the draft report is a successful Type 2 audit. So until, obviously I can't say that we have definitively passed. It's not official because we don't have the final draft of the report, but according to the draft that I just received, we did successfully certify RPKI towards our SOC 2 Type 2. So that's a tremendous, tremendous amount of work that we've put in. And kudos to the entire organization for all that work. That is part of the explanation for why we clapped earlier. So PCI DSS, this is focused more, it has a piece or a component that's focused on organizational security, but this is looking more at ARIN Online or parts of ARIN Online where the payment card information traverses the infrastructure that handles that kind of stuff. So it's not all of ARIN Online, but it covers a lot of ARIN Online. It's a different structure around that. It's not the exact same kind of framework, but they look at similar items there. And the one thing that I will say is it's sort of for major components, that's external and internal vulnerability testing. That's one of the reasons why we launched off this year to doing that on a quarterly basis as opposed to annually. There is the penetration testing that's required on an annual basis by a third party, which we continue to do. And there is a security questionnaire that at our level, we self-complete, we self-attest. It is all of the same, basically, it's all the same controls that we use for SOC 2. So that's pretty much a one-for-one kind of thing. And the one thing that I want to communicate here is that as of early this month, we are officially PCI DSS compliant with ARIN Online. So October as Cybersecurity Awareness Month for us should be pretty special in 2023 that we've been able to successfully certify both ARIN Online and RPKI. It's a tremendous amount of work for the organization, and I'm very proud of everybody who's been involved in that. So there was a question during ARIN 51 about a roadmap. This is all great information, appreciate the information, but what next? I will admit this roadmap changed from the end of last year. This is not what we had anticipated, and it's a very simplified roadmap for sharing with the organization, and what's in the top is essentially the same information on the bottom, just visualized a little bit. The blue items are now officially complete. RPKI for SOC 2 has been achieved. Type 2 achieved as of, unofficially as of today. PCI DSS for ARIN Online was officially achieved as of the beginning of this month. We originally didn't intend on taking on PCI DSS in 2023 to be fully compliant. Full disclosure, what we had intended on doing was doing the RPKI for SOC 2 and then doing a feasibility study to determine if we could pull more products and services into the SOC 2 program along with RPKI. Now, I think the obvious first choice for consideration would have to be ARIN Online. And so we were looking at that and saying, okay, let's continue to move towards rolling that into the program. When we did a payment card vendor change coming into 2023, there was a different set of criteria that they expected compared to our last payment card vendor. And so we immediately changed gears and focused on PCI DSS to be compliant this calendar year. And so we are, as I said, officially as of Q3 PCI DSS compliant. ARIN Online, the SOC 2 portion of that has now been pushed. We're probably going to be trying, at the earliest we'll be looking at pulling that into the SOC 2 program as we start it in our 2024 to 2025 cycle. If things continue to stay favorable, that we're able to roll that in. And then after we roll ARIN Online into the SOC 2 program, then we'll do another feasibility study to determine whether or not there are other products and services that we can pull in, whether or not the community has an appetite for it at that point. And so that, very generally, is our roadmap going forward. A little bit of agility there just to address real-world concerns and changes with our payment card vendor, but otherwise we're staying on track. None of that is mentioned on our website yet because since it was all happening during the month of October, we were going to let everything play out and then update all of the PCI and the SOC 2 information on our webpage so that folks would have that information available to them. And once we get the final report from our auditor, which they have pledged to get to us no later than the end of the month, I expect that we'll see it by the end of the month at this point. At the point that we get that, we will make the updates to the webpage to reflect our Type 2 completion as well as our PCI DSS compliance. And that's what I have for you today, subject to your questions.
All right, we can take just a couple of questions. We've got a few more things to get through, but I don't want to, this is important conversation, so real quick.
Yeah, Leif Sawyer, GCI Alaska. Recovering security architect. Congratulations on the SOC 1 and SOC, pending SOC 2. That's great.
Thank you.
We have a lot of customer data out there that we need to make sure we're protecting. Looking forward to ISO 27000, 27001?
We'll have to do a feasibility study on that to determine, obviously, whether or not that's a broad community interest. 27001 was part of the discussion when we opted to go with SOC 2, and part of the reason that we hard opted for SOC 2 was because of the fact that that was a stated expectation by the broader community. So if that becomes something that the broader community has an appetite for, then we'll have to look at that roadmap and reassess.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire, this is wonderful stuff to see. There's an ancillary benefit to all of the work that ARIN is doing, which is something that comes up in many community consultations, which is we need to leave this deprecated service that is insecure around so that somebody on the internet can still connect to this service. I think it's important that as you're going through this process, you make it keenly aware that to be able to maintain these certifications, the what-ifs of somebody running a 25-year-old server down the road is just not going to be able to be supported. So as you move through this process in the next 2-3 years, you're going to have to turn off stuff that people expected to just always run because you can't maintain certification with these systems. And I think it's important for the community to understand what may be coming down the pipe in that regard.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you for voicing that.
Doug Canine, Coordinated Care Services. Just going to echo some of the other comments. Great work as a fellow individual working in the IT space and cybersecurity. It's a lot of big lift, so congratulations to you and your team, and great work.
Thank you very much.
Peter Harrison, board member. You mentioned that security was a part of the DNA of the organization, and I just want to let the community be aware that the board takes this extremely seriously. The creation of the Risk and Cybersecurity Committee is a manifestation of that. We have quarterly reviews of the strategic risks, and we have monthly reviews of material operational risks. We shepherd the plans to mitigate these risks, and we have meetings about this every month. There's evidence of the progress that we've seen from the staff presentations. Our input, along with other committees, is used in the strategic direction of the organization. And I want to say once again that the performance of the team has been exemplary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you.
Roman Tatarnikov, Intlas Consulting Company. Yesterday there was a question about privacy, one of the policies about privacy, and that brought up an interesting question in my mind. How does privacy go together with security at ARIN exactly, or is it a separate topic that's not covered by information security? And honestly, thank you so much for doing that, especially doing all these audits ahead of time. That's tremendous.
Sure, thank you. John?
Yeah, I'll take the, okay, thank you. Oh, when I get off? I'm more than off, I'm completely unplugged.
John Curran Unplugged.
For that I be unplugged. Let's see. Short version. We have mandatory priorities that we don't get to avoid. So those are, for example, priorities that are driven by legal requirements, regulatory requirements, sometimes system upgrades. We're doing a change, we're switching vendors. We did that with payment. We switched vendors and PCI DSS suddenly became first and foremost. So the security requirements can be swept into those sometimes. But if it's not mandated by what we're doing, then the security requirements go in the same list as the tech debt relief that we're talking about, and the engineering improvements, and anything that we've put on the suggestion list so it ends up on the engineering roadmap for priorities. And there's a entertaining wrestling match is probably the best way of saying it for those priorities. Christian has an equal seat at the table. So when we did, for example, SOC 2, that did mandate some changes, and because that was the driver, that mandated those changes. It's equivalent to a regulatory change. It has to happen. But in general, security is going to be, unless it's to meet one of our compliance requirements, security will be considered equal with tech debt, considered equal with engineering efficiency, and similar. It doesn't have priority, but it also doesn't have deep priority. The moment it gets in the way of a certification, then it's the top of the list because certification is an organizational goal. If we expand scope of our certification, so for example, right now our SOC 2 certification is RPKI. If we expand the scope, that will drive a bunch of security priorities. So in and of itself, it doesn't have a push, but it can be based on the scope of our prioritization commitments for security. If we increase the scope of our security compliance commitments, that drives certain automatic priorities.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take one last question.
Scott Kim, ARIN Fellow, McKesson. I have a question about the vulnerability scan. The quarterly vulnerability scan implemented by ARIN, does it include a remediation plan for adjusting identified vulnerabilities in a timely and effective manner, or is there a separate process for remediation in place?
Yes. No, I'm just kidding. There absolutely is. When I say that there's vulnerability scans, what is part and parcel with that is we have an expectation that for those items, in accordance with PCI requirements, that we address those high and critical items on an appropriate timeline to make sure that they're addressed, they're remediated. PCI will not allow you to move forward without certain vulnerabilities being addressed. And so we do have a set of policies and expectations around addressing those as a part of that vulnerability scan. So I'll slide into this for a second. You run the scan, you address those concerns based on what the threshold is, and it differs between external and internal scans, and then you have to rescan and provide the clear scans to the PCI auditor so that they can clear that it's been addressed. So very much so, yes, we do remediate those items as a part of the scanning process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Christian.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, folks, going to ask you to bear with us. We have a few more things on the agenda that we want to make sure to provide you an update on. So next up, I'd like to invite, she's already here, Amanda Galden. I'm getting out of the way.
Sorry, moving fast. Now I know how Nancy Carter feels like with her treasurer financial report towards the end of the meeting. So, whew, we're almost done, guys. Hang in there. So it's great to be able to have the opportunity to share with you all what has happened since I gave my last update at ARIN 51 related to outreach and various programs here at ARIN. My name is Amanda Galden, and I'm the Community Programs Manager at ARIN. So I'll start with the ARIN Fellowship Program. Now that we've moved into this in-person but an enhanced virtual meeting space, I think the program has gotten a lot more visibility recently, so hopefully it's already familiar to you, but if not, don't worry, I am here to tell you more. So the fellowship program launched in 2009 with the goal of bringing selected individuals from throughout the ARIN region together to learn more about ARIN and attend the meeting. It's especially a great opportunity for individuals to be able to attend if it's not in their organization's budget. You can see that since launch year, we've had more than 200 fellows join us at these meetings. Starting in 2021, though, we began to incorporate a pretty full program. We now have pre-recordings for fellows to watch, 2 90-minute Zoom sessions that cover the ARIN policy development, the Number Resource Policy Manual that we love to call NRPM, the mailing list, policies on the docket for the upcoming meeting, and new this year we added a little bit of an intro to the global policy development process. Then fellows attend the meeting orientation, they attend the ARIN meeting, either in person or virtually, and then we have one last wrap-up meeting next week. Additionally, fellows are paired with an ARIN Advisory Council member mentor for those virtual breakout room sessions where they can have more specific time for Q&A and just to have conversation with each other. So it's very much a time investment on the part of the fellows that they've committed to, but it has created such an awesome way to introduce them to ARIN, our work, and then members of the community as well. So who are the fortunate fellows for ARIN 52 that have joined us and put in all of this time and hard work? Hopefully you've met a few of them if you were attending NANOG as well as they were here, either in person or online. I'll give a quick shout out to the Fellowship Selection Committee as well that served for 2023. They reviewed a lot of applications for our 2 meetings, ARIN 51 and then ARIN 52. And made a lot of hard decisions as it was really an excellent pool of applicants that we had this year. So for ARIN 52, we have 14 fellows. 11 have attended in person and 3 are online virtually. We haven't had a crew this large for quite a while, and we've had a great couple of weeks learning together. Fellows who are here in person have a blue ribbon on their badge, so hopefully you've been able to stop and introduce yourself. And if you're on the Zoom, you can give them a little virtual wave as well. I mentioned the Advisory Council member mentors. So pictured here joining us this program are Doug Kameen, Chris Tassett, Alicia Trotman, and Allison Wood, and Carrie Richards, also a former AC member, joined us to be in the virtual space this go-round. They have all helped me and helped the fellows, overall adding so much value to the program. And hopefully you've been able to tell that this fellowship program is a team effort, and there's other people. I want to thank Leif Sawyer and Kat Hunter on the ARIN AC chair and vice chair that have joined me, and Kevin Bloomberg joined us this year of The Wire and gave that internet policy global view that was very valuable. And pretty much every member of the ARIN communications team as well helps me along the way. So thank you to all of them. And I'll switch gears now and I'll tell you a little bit more about the fellowship program coming up for the next meeting, and then if you're interested, how to apply for that. But I'll share with you guys now about the ARIN Community Grant Program. So by supporting initiatives that improve the overall internet industry and user environment for the ARIN region, we've been able to see some really great projects come to fruition. Overall, 21 projects have been funded the past few years. There is also a selection committee for the grant program, so thanks to them for volunteering their time to go through many long and very detailed and thorough applications and make decisions along with board approval for where this money is going to go. Our 2022 grant program recipients have completed their projects. Their final reports have been submitted, and next month you'll see a blog post from each of them where you can read about their accomplishments and how these funds helped them achieve success in their endeavors. And also exciting news, the grant recipients for 2023 were selected and have received funding to work on their projects, and we'll get an update from them around the springtime and then a final report from them around the fall time next year. So if you would like to know more about these projects, you can check out the blog post that went out in September, which goes into a little bit more detail about what each project is looking to accomplish over the next 12 months. The grant program application cycle for 2024 will open in April. There's a great deal of information on the ARIN website right now that outlines the criteria that must be met in order for an application to be reviewed by the selection committee. There's also a sneak peek at the questions on the application. So if you are thinking about a project and interested in requesting funding, there's no reason that you can't take a look at all of that information now. So lastly, I will talk about outreach to the ARIN community and what that looked like over the course of the year. Here's a little visual of where ARIN has been. So to me, the question is, where haven't we been in 2023, as it has been a very busy year. But it's also been great to be back at it, back in a part of it with presentations, help desk, webinars. We've had a lot of interaction and engagement with you, the internet community, and making sure that we're providing support and assistance to you so you can maximize the value of the ARIN services. So a total running count of the events, so far we've had 31 in person and 7 virtual for a total of nearly 40 events so far this year, and the year's not quite over. Also keep in mind that there's many more events that ARIN attends. For example, ARIN's Government Affairs Department does extensive international travel, but this count pertains to where we're going to give a presentation or provide a help desk, and the majority is to the community in the ARIN region. We have been talking a lot this year about IPv6, RPKI, and providing those timely updates on important changes coming to ARIN services, many of which you have heard today, and yesterday as well. So the year isn't over yet, but it is winding down, so that means just a lot to look forward to in 2024. Applications for the ARIN 53 Fellowship Program, that meeting is in Barbados in April. So the application site for fellowships will open in January. Like the grant program, there's a lot of information online right now, a sample of the application questions, FAQs, and we'll update that here shortly to reflect program specifics about ARIN 53. I do have a hunch it will be very competitive. Similarly, applications for the ARIN 54 Fellowship Program, that will be happening in Toronto in October, will open later this summer. And I briefly mentioned the grants program applications opened in April 24. And there's also volunteer opportunities as well. In January, we'll be making a call for grant selection committee members and fellowship program selection committee members. So if you're interested in volunteering your time in that angle, keep an eye on ARIN Announce. And if you are, lastly, if you're hosting an event or webinar as well and think ARIN's presence would align with your goals, definitely tell us about it. We're building our 2024 calendar right now, and we'd love to help potential new or existing customers understand all of the services that ARIN provides. So thank you for listening and engaging with us and being here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
And actually what I'd like to do in the interest of time, because we're a little bit pressed, is hold questions and comments about programs until the open microphone, if that's okay with everyone. Be okay?
I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. we want to hear from you, and we want to give you time for that, but we also want to give our presenters time to make sure that we give you all the things that you might wish to comment on, if that makes sense. We'll go with it. All right, next up, I'd like to invite Marty McLaughlin. He's our certification program manager to come up and talk a little bit about what's been going on in developing certificate programs at ARIN.
Green button, all right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Marty McLaughlin. I'm the new certification program manager. I work for Joe Westover in the customer experience and strategy group under John Sweeting. I'm going to cover a couple of new programs. I'm very new to ARIN. This is my first ARIN meeting in person. I started in April, and I was immediately given a new program to launch, and that was the Qualified Facilitator Program. Am I hitting the right button? There we go. I was also hired to establish a training certification program, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the Qualified Facilitator Program first. And what is the Qualified Facilitator Program? It's an optional resource for ARIN customers that helps connect organizations seeking to acquire IPv4 address space or autonomous system numbers with qualified facilitators who have been approved by ARIN to help organizations with the transfer process. So this is a new program that replaces the STLS program, which was the Specified Transfer Listing Service. This new program, it requires facilitators' strict adherence to ARIN's policies and high ethical standards. It ensures the protection of ARIN's interests and reputation, and it streamlines the transfer process for ARIN's registration services. It also instills greater confidence within the ARIN region. So we retired the STLS in May, and under that program there were organizations that would list unused IPv4 space. They'd list their contact information, and other organizations would list themselves as needing IPv4 space. And then there were some facilitators who would help with the transfer process. So that service kind of dwindled after a while. I think it was around for about 10 years. And the community wanted to make the qualifications for the facilitators a lot stricter. And so with that feedback from the community and even the facilitators themselves, we came up with very stringent qualification requirements. I'm going to cover those now. So all qualified facilitators, they have to be legally registered entities in the ARIN region and under an ARIN RSA, which is a registration services agreement. They have to operate within an ARIN service region and adhere to U.S. government business regulations. Maintain at least 2 points of contact who can pass a qualification interview, and that's with our general counsel and CCO. And they also have to have at least $1 million in liability insurance, naming ARIN as an additional insured, provide third-party background checks for their employees, and offer indemnification for ARIN. They also have to submit 3 verifiable customer references and comply with the facilitator agreement and code of conduct. So these are all new requirements that were put in place to make sure that we had a very rigorous process for qualifying them. And some of the code of conduct, in all transactions, qualified facilitators should observe the duties of good faith and fair dealing. They have to have a duty of transparency, duty of competency. You can read through the code of conduct on our website. One of the other things they have to do is inform ARIN when they're assisting with transfers. And, on an annual basis, they're going to have to confirm their compliance and remit their associated fees. So there was a lot of teams that were involved in launching this program. This was a good way for me to kind of learn the inner workings of ARIN, how all the different departments work together, including CXS, comms, RSD, FSD, and legal. So I got a lot of help from them. I just brought it across the goal line. We do have some qualified facilitators here, I believe. Or we did. I can't see. If anybody wants to stand up and acknowledge, they may have already left. But if anyone's interested in becoming a qualified facilitator, you can go to our website and look up Qualified Facilitator Program. If you're interested in using a qualified facilitator, you can also find a qualified facilitator on that list on the website. There's currently 8. I believe at one point under the SCLS program there was about 27. By making these more strict requirements, we've definitely whittled down that list. But that's a good thing because all of these facilitators are earnest and they represent our community very well. So the other program that I'm going to talk about today is our training certification program. So we've had training offered for a long time, but we don't really have a certification program per se. Certification can mean a lot of different things to different people. Certifications for PMP, for instance, where you have to recertify every year, and then you've got certifications where you just take a class, you pass an exam, and you get a certificate. So right now, we're basically in the planning stages, and afterwards, we're going to design some courses, we'll develop the material, and we'd like to have a test or a pilot group that would be able to work out all the kinks. And then we'll implement the training and then maintain it. So these are basic stages. We're very early in the stages, in the planning stage. Sorry, I keep turning the page and hitting that mic. It's probably making some noise. So what we've done so far is that we've acknowledged training interest continues in the community, and it's reflected in the 2023 ARIN Satisfaction Survey. We've also known this for some time just from basic community feedback. We've researched and documented the resource requirements and development time needed to successfully launch a training certification program. And what I mean by that, the resources being, you go into a shop and you see what are the systems and tools that they have, who are the personnel that can do the training. And so me being new, this is what I did, and I'm telling Hollis and Beverly something that they already know. But some of the tools would include a learning management system, for instance, content development tools like Captivate, certification exam platforms, and assessment and grading tools. Personnel would be program administrators, managers, instructional designers or technical trainers, and also subject matter experts, help desk, and what have you. So a lot of this we have. We do have a training developer extraordinaire in Beverly Hicks, and she gets a lot of help from other folks in Hollis's team. We have some subject matter experts, RPKI, Brad Gorman, John Worley, and IPv6. Looking at development time, there have been some studies by ATD and Chapman Alliance that kind of tell you how many hours it takes to develop 1 hour of content. So we've looked at some of that. It takes longer for e-learning courses, for instance, than it does for instructor-led courses. And then certification test development. It takes time to develop tests. I did this when I was in the Air Force. It could average anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to develop a test. So all of the things that we've looked at are in anticipation of how long it'll take for us to launch training. And part of that was assessing our initial training objectives. So what I want to do right now, and I don't see the clock ticking. Am I okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Let's take a look at the customer satisfaction survey. This is something that Joe mentioned the other day. Joe Westover, that is. And this was some of the comments that came back from the community. I'll read just a few of them. More education and promotion of the routing registry and RPKI service. More educational resources for things like DNSSEC and RPKI. There's some more aspirational partnering with NANOG and doing virtual labs and more meaningful IPv6 adoption training. And one of the questions in the survey was, which of the following topics would you be interested in formal training provided by ARIN? And this is the survey that Joe went over, robbed one of his slides. And this survey was done over probably about 9 years, starting in 2014, every 3 years. And if you look at the far left, the darkest blue column, that is the 2023 survey results. There were about 317 participants. So it shows that RPKI, obviously, it's one of our newer services, has got the most interest at 51%. It's up from 28% in 2014. And IPv6 deployment is second most, even though it's gone down a little. And then use of ARIN tools and services, IPv4 transfers, use of ARIN online. So the recommendation was, of course, to provide more training in these areas. So looking what we currently have as far as resources, we have some initial training certification goals, and that's just to get things started. Expand our learning development resources. What does that mean? Well, it could mean, using resources from within, maybe getting another resource, meaning another person. We also want to update existing training videos, develop brand new e-learning training modules that actually have knowledge checks so we can establish some testing criteria for these training modules, and then host them on a learning management system, provided we're able to get one. We're initially going to focus on RPKI, IPv6, and ARIN Online, and then target development at a e-learning level 1, level 2, and these levels go all the way from level 1 all the way up to level 5 with virtual reality and that sort of thing. We're not going there. So level 1, level 2 are page turners, assessments, and interactive exercises. We'd also need to, if we were lucky enough to be able to procure a learning management system, we'd have to stand it up, have resources available that can actually use the system, set it up for us. So that's where we are right now. So before you can run, you got to be able to walk. And I think these are the building blocks that we need in order to get the certification program rolling. So I'm looking at some of the subjects that we would cover initially, and these probably looking at the e-learning modules based on these topics. So RPKI, you'd have introduction to RPKI architecture, certificate management, route origin validation, route origin authorization, creation and management, relying party software, RPKI deployment strategies, monitoring and troubleshooting, industry standards and best practices, case studies and real world examples. And some of the material we already have, so the idea would be to pull the material that we have, update it, and get it into an actual structured e-learning module that we can deliver. And then same with IPv6, introduction IPv6, address planning protocols and services, routing and routing protocols, transition mechanisms, security considerations, deployment and implementation strategies, et cetera, et cetera. You can read these. ARIN Online, we do have a lot of ARIN Online videos today. We would just, again, update those, put them in a more structured format for e-learning with knowledge checks. And then, so those would be the first 3 courses that we would venture to create. And when we get to the point where we were going to pilot some training, we would like to get some feedback from the community, maybe get a focus group together and test out that training. So if we have any volunteers, you can reach out to training@arin.net to participate. That would probably be, sometime next year. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Marty. I think like we did with Amanda, if anybody has any questions or comments on what we're doing in the certification program space, we'll keep those for open microphone. And then I want to allow Kevin Bloomberg just a few moments to come up and share a few news items related to the ASO AC.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kevin Bloomberg with the ASO AC. I'm going to go very fast because I don't want to keep you from your flights, your coffee, or the pool time. Normally, during this presentation, I would do an explanation of who we are, how we operate, everything around that. But I'm going to just go into 2 very specific things. This is the ASO AC. There's 15 of us from 5 regions normally. In our region, we have Nick Nugent, Chris Costada, and myself, Kevin Bloomberg. We are the ASO AC representatives for the ARIN region. Okay? Pictures, what we do. We do 3 things. I'm going to talk about 2 of them. The first thing we do is global policy development. That is where one of our main focuses. The last major global policy development was in 2012. We also do the appointment of 2 ICANN board directors, as well as to the ICANN NomCom. We have a number of meetings. This is all online. Please, we're very open and transparent. We'd love for you to join us. Here's our current appointments. This is the first thing I wanted to let everybody know. Just like we've talked about policy for the last couple of days, the Advisory Council did a full modernization of our procedures, very, very in-depth. An example is we went from 14 different voting mechanisms in our procedures to 1. That is currently in the voting process to be approved, to be sent to the NRO EC, for them to vet and approve it and send it back to us. So we have done that project. It was a massive undertaking. And hopefully that we'll be now using that new procedures document in the next couple of months. Sorry, there is one slide that is missing. And it doesn't matter, I'll just tell you. I was mentioning that the ASO AC is responsible for appointing 2 directors to the ICANN board. Seat 9 is going through that process now. We're in the nomination phase. If you or anybody you know has an interest in applying to be a part of that process for the ICANN board through the ASO AC, it is on our website, aso.icann.org. The deadline is December the 15th for the first round of nominations. Our final, it goes fairly fast. There's a lot of interviews, a lot of other things that happen, but our results are usually in May. All of the timelines were emailed as well as on the website. So if there's anybody for the ICANN board who is interested in that seat 9, you need to be in the region other than the RIPE region to be eligible. That's the only key requirement, is that you cannot be from the RIPE region because we already have a director from that region. Otherwise, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, apparently the slide gremlins got us today. Let's go. Here we go. And that brings us to open microphone. Mr. Curran, if you'd like to come on up.
Okay, the open mic program. Good afternoon. Microphones are open. I'll be handling them. This one, go.
Doug Kameen, Coordinator Care Services, ARIN AC, and mentor in the fellowship program. And I just wanted to make a round of applause to the fellows that were here. It's a great job for them, and Amanda and her team for the job they did with the fellowship program, because it's awesome, and it's, I'm honored to participate in it, but also the work they do is amazing. So congratulations.
Thank you. Over here.
Roman Tatarnikov, Intlas Consulting Company, also former ARIN Fellow. I just wanted to do a comment on the fellowship program. I remember seeing an email on NANAG saying that ARIN has a fellowship program, and my first response was, the company that takes money for IP addresses actually has something more than that. I was glad that I was selected a fellow. I encourage everyone to go through this because that's how you learn not just what ARIN does, but about the whole internet governance. I would like to thank not just all of the ARIN staff, but also Amanda, who selected me, my mentors, Dave Cunningham and Doug Kamen. And I would also like to remind you that we keep on talking about all these beautiful things, IPv6, RPKI, and so on. We cannot really implement them well if the larger world doesn't know that they need to be implemented. So whenever you go to a meeting, whether it's Information Security Association, some kind of meeting or something, or just going to a college, always remind people that there is a fellowship program, always encourage them to participate, and then you get fellows like Dustin, who's actually now going for AC board. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Great input. Thank you. Where?
Hey, hi. It's Mohibul from Microsoft and ARIN Fellow. So I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to ARIN for granting us this incredible opportunity to be part of the fellowship program. And through this experience, we have gained a profound understanding of ARIN and how their policy meeting works. I also actively participated in policy discussions, which was interesting first time, build valuable contacts with other peers, and I have every intention of remaining actively engaged in this dynamic community in the future. Moreover, as a fellow, I had the privilege of attending the NANOC 89 program meetings this time, which allowed me to delve into technical issues and connect with fellow engineers, which was interesting. This experience has been truly enriching, and I'm deeply thankful to ARIN for making it possible. And after returning to my work, I'm planning to give a presentation of this. I have in our team we have more than 100 people, so I will try to encourage my fellow engineers to be involved more on this community. And last but not the least, I also would like to thank Amanda and the whole ARIN team and mentors, all the mentors, AC members, for all of their support. Thank you all.
Glad you found the mentor program useful. Thank you. The fellowship program. Thank you. Over here.
Nick Nugent, University of Tennessee and NRO-NC. I continue to be skeptical or at least concerned about the sort of labels that are attached to names for folks who are running for office, the qualified, well-qualified, qualifications not demonstrated. I'm certainly open-minded, happy to be persuaded otherwise, but it did seem strange to me that in this go-round, and perhaps others, there are current members, incumbents, who've long served on a body who were receiving the second highest rating of qualified as opposed to well-qualified. I understand, or at least I've heard, that maybe this is outsourced to another organization. So I would just encourage maybe examining the current process by which these labels are attached to potentially improve them. One possible suggestion would be to for incumbents to simply attach an incumbent label so as to remove them from the sort of the same ordinality. Another is to remove the system altogether. Thanks.
Okay, your suggestion will be taken. I will note that the Board of Trustees has spent quite a bit of time over the years looking at the election process, trying to balance the open nature of it, but also trying to make sure that people are informed well about the candidates. In the past, we had an OMCOM doing the evaluation, and we provided the criteria. And now we've actually had a third-party HR firm that objectively applies the criteria. I know that we'll be looking at refinements to the system, but I guess at a high level, the most important thing to think about is that the major change we made now is that all candidates make the ballot. Short of a material, clear violation that prevents them from serving in the role as AC or board, you will be on the ballot. You may have a rating attached, but at least we've stepped to the point where we don't remove candidates and have people wondering why a candidate doesn't appear at all, which was a past problem. As for the labels, we'll take your feedback, we'll give it back. It'll go to the governance committee of the board as part of the year-end report, and they'll take that into consideration.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Over here.
Scott Johnson, Spacely Packets. I just want to congratulate the board, staff, and AC, and Mr. Curran on your continued progress this year, and a wonderful meeting. And speaking on behalf of the Interplanetary Networking Special Interest Group, we all hope you continue to live long and prosper.
Thank you. Very good. Leif?
Yeah, Leif Sawyer, GCI Communications Alaska Chair, ARIN Advisory Council. I look out, we're all getting a little older here, a little bit more gray into my beard, and I don't know that I'm that old, but these are really hard to read, the names on the name badges, right? And it's single-sided, so if it flips over, I have no idea who you are. I look at the NANOG name badge, and I see my name very boldly written. Right. You can read it from here, can't you?
Yep.
Yeah, and it has my pronouns on here, which makes it really nice when I'm being introduced to people or when other people are introduced to me. So a suggestion is to follow the NANOG style so that we can all read our name badges without infringing on other people's personal spaces.
Got it. Your suggestion is to follow the NANOG style, not to issue readers to the older members of our community, right? I just want to be clear.
Glasses on top of my trifocals. Thank you.
Yeah,
John?
and we don't want to have Hollis going around flipping everybody's badge.
Right.
So it's this has actually been addressed. Leif and Hollis has taken the initiative to reach out, and we've contacted the suppliers of badges for NANOG. And I believe we will most likely be using them for our meetings in the future.
We are investigating actively. Thank you, Leif.
Over here.
Hi, Jerry George, ARIN AC, former fellow and Caribbean member.
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to the e-learning option. I think that's going to be really great.
Yep.
With regard to the fellowship program, particularly now that there is the hybrid option, I have a suggestion to increase the number of remote participants. And I'm thinking, maybe selfishly, particularly in the Caribbean region, that we can now have a lot more remote fellows without necessarily increasing the cost to ARIN. Because one of the things I keep trying to do is to encourage persons to be part of the program. And the mentorship is actually extremely valuable in terms of getting persons to understand what ARIN is about, to avoid getting lost in all of what's going on. So if, for example, the remote fellowship program can be increased by a significant amount, then we can have a lot more people participating, getting involved without necessarily having the
travel and associated.
Right.
Oh, excellent. Excellent suggestion, and we'll make sure that gets back into the community.
Yeah, and thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Microphones remain open. Open mic. Remote mic is open. Interplanetary mic is open. SETI.
No questions in the virtual queue.
Last chance. Closing the on-site queues. Closing the remote queues. Mr. Sweeting.
Yeah, John Swinton, Chief Customer. I just wanted to say we're having a really fantastic turnout on the election, on the voting.
Oh, yeah.
We're almost to quorum already, but that doesn't mean, you don't have to vote. Please,
Keep voting.
everyone, keep voting. If you're eligible, cast your vote, and know that there's a lot of people out there participating this year, so your vote really matters.
That's what we want. And with that, I will close the queues, end the session. Thank you for a wonderful meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Hollis to close. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. It's been a great meeting. We've been so happy to have you here with us and for sticking through to the end. I know we ran a little bit long. We do have our final wrap-ups, of course. Everybody get ready to applaud. Let me read off all the names first, and then please start. We have our sponsor, our network sponsor, AT&T, our bronze sponsor, IPv4.global by Hilco Stream Bank, and our live stream sponsor, Google. So let's give them all a round of applause. We do rely on our sponsors very heavily to make these meetings happen, so we really appreciate them. Again, we do want to hear what your experience was like here at the meeting. It's very important to us. It's how we figure out how to improve. You will receive a link to the survey. There's also a QR code you can scan in the hall as you're walking out if you like. We will be giving a lucky winner an AirPad in a random drawing at the end of the survey period at the end of next week. And please do go ahead and mark your calendars. It's going to be a hardship, but ARIN 53, we're going back to Bridgetown, and so we hope to see you all there, either in person, hopefully, or online if you're unable to make the trip. But 14 to 17 April 2024, we'll be back again with ARIN 53. And thank you, and that is a wrap. Have a great time, everybody.
Well,